shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good afternoon, just after 4 o'clock. Thank you to Dr. David Bull, who apparently, after working non-stop for 4 weeks, is off for a well-deserved break. But we are here on Drive, on Bank Holiday Monday. This is JK. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in on VE Day, the 80th anniversary. And so heartening, actually, listening to what David said about how so many of you are sharing stories and how important it is for the younger generation to understand in pure basic terms from me. You wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the sacrifices made by many, many, many people years and years ago. We'll talk VE Day. We will also talk about Reform are on the rampage. I was away when those results came in last week. Fantastic result for Reform. 1 new MP, of course, 10 councils, 2 mayors. An announcement literally very recently. Zia Youssef, the party chairman, has said that only the Union flag and the St George's Cross will be allowed on buildings and anything to do in the council areas run by Reform. That is 10 councils. I think that's fantastic. I mean, they've got Kent, Lincolnshire, Derbyshire, Lancashire for sweeping gains last week, but the policy's already come to fire from Labour, who have said that it would mean a ban on the display of Ukrainian flags. That's not what Reform are trying to do, Labour. They're trying to ban the Ukrainian flag. Maybe it's all about just being proud of who we are on this 80th day. And I listen, I don't know, maybe I'm getting older by the day, but for me, I'm proud about being British, and I'm proud about the people in the past who got us here, and I'm prepared to absolutely jump up and down. Which gets me and Ryan and Jodie thinking straight away on Bank Holiday Monday. Here is your... It's not even a question. We're not that organised. Here's a double-edged sword. Ready for this, Ryan? What makes you... I know what's coming. Ladies and gentlemen, all 7 of you, what makes you proud for being British? What makes you proud of this country or of being British / what makes you embarrassed by being British? They are 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I haven't got a prize today. Maybe we'll find a Union Jag flag. We'll do something like that. But what makes you proud to be British? And what makes you embarrassed to be British? 87222. Start your message with the word talk. So much to discuss in Labour circles. Harry, I'm beyond even having a conversation about Prince Harry. In fact, I just bumped into Piers Morgan downstairs and we were trying to find the analogy between Brooklyn Beckham and Prince Harry. You know, 2 nepo, spoilt kids who have been given absolutely anything and then managed to turn against their parents. What Harry said last week to me goes beyond the pale. We'll talk about that throughout the show. But predominantly, we'll talk about what you want to talk about. VE Day, Reform banning the Union flag. and the St George's Cross are banning anything but those being on buildings. 87222, start your message with the word talk. And, of course, we are here, ready for your calls as ever. 0344 499 1000. Our Jodie is back, looking glamorous, switched on, ready for it after a weekend of passion with Cameron. More of that coming up. Ryan's got new shoes on. Do you know, can I just say this to you, right? Maybe you should do this on a voice note today. When you send a voice note, 0344 499 1000, you want to talk about VE Day, you want to talk about reform, say you can only fly those flags for British councils. Ryan's got new size 14 shoes today because he's got massive feet. I would love you to start your WhatsApp message with big feet, big blank, ladies and gentlemen. They are blankety blank, courtesy of Drive Time on Talk. So start your WhatsApp, 0344 499 1000. Hi, Ryan. Big shoes, big... There you go. We say a very good afternoon to a man who's large in every sense of the word, former government special advisor, a good friend of mine. James Price, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very envious. I've only got size 13 feet, so I'm feeling very put out right now.
Have you really got size 13 feet?
Yeah, I'm afraid so, but it's nothing like Ryan's, clearly. I'm a lesser man.
Well, can I just ask you the obvious question? And you're shaking your head already before you even know what the question is. Is it true?
Big sock drawer, absolutely.
There you see big socks, they are. So 87222, start your message with the word talk. Let's start with VE Day, Jay. Driving in was a nightmare, so came on the train. Crowds lining the mile. I am unashamedly British, proud of the royal family, proud of how we are here and why we are here. And I spend a lot of my time saying to my kids, you lot need to understand so much that gets destroyed nowadays, I think, about this country, made us what I believe we are, which is great. Yes, there's problems, of course there are. If I could impart that, if the younger generation could wake up to that, I would be remarkably happy. You're seeing pictures of the flyover earlier. Fantastic with everything that's going on, that people can come out and show what our veterans and what the past means to us, James.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, it's hard to put, frankly, into words the scale of everything that happened. But I want to draw attention to something that happened, would have been about 12, 13 years before VE Day. There was a debate at the Oxford Union where the motion passed, and the motion was this House would, under no circumstances, fight for king and country. And that passed. And some say that gave Hitler the kind of confidence to think that Britain wouldn't fight and that he would be able to succeed in conquering all of Europe. But fast forward, 7, 8 years after that debate happened, but Britain did indeed fight for king and for country and for the homeland and for all their families and their friends and the institutions and everything we hold dear. And we did that for many years alone against the most terrifying odds before other allies came onto our side. So although we feel so down and out now about the current state of the country, about our politicians, about our economy, about the huge numbers of fighting age men coming over every day, frankly, making things that bit worse, and littering and all the other horrors that we've got, remember that we face these sorts of horrifying, terrifying odds, and that, as Tennyson said, much is taken, but much abides, and that we are still that great nation which can rise to these sorts of challenges if we put our hearts and minds to it.
I think that's right. And I think what's really interesting about the United Kingdom, which seems as divisive and as torn and as in bits as probably it's ever been, both politically, culturally, socially, and it sounds a terrible thing to say, but we always seem to show our best at times of conflict when this country comes together. I think of the Falklands, I think of the Iraq War, I think of those times where actually people put that aside, and one would hope, wouldn't they? I don't know. So much of the past is being torn down, desecrated, slagged off, cancelled. That just annoys me. Maybe it's my age, mate. But for everybody who perhaps has just let that pass it by. 80 years on the 8th. Victory in Europe was an extraordinary thing. And for me, I think it's great to see that will never, ever, and should never, ever be forgotten. It's 4:10. Your stories about VE Day, if you're listening, if you want to share them, 0344 499 1000. But the thing that's already got them going is this. Reform UK councils will only be allowed to fly the Union flag and the St George's Cross. Hurrah! The party chairman has said. Zia Youssef announced on Monday that no other flags would be allowed to be displayed in the local authorities under the party's control. He said that this policy would include flagpoles, balconies, reception desks or council chamber walls. They've got 10 councils. Obviously, sweeping gains. We don't need to go back over that. I think a seismic moment last week. However, Already Labour, this is extraordinary, have jumped up and gone, no, that's not right. What about the Ukrainian flag? Right. Do you know what? Why don't they just go, that's a nice idea? Because I suspect that most of the people that listen to this station and watch this network will be over the moon that we have a political party in this country, and I use the phrase again, unashamedly, saying we are British and we are bloody well proud of it. I was driving last week with my son and I was trying to explain to him, and he said to me, but the Irish and the French and the Irish and the Scots and the Welsh are very proud of their flags, but why can't we do that in England? Why the hell can't we, James Price? We should be able to, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I think this is perhaps a slightly too stringent ban. The idea that Kent County Council wouldn't be able to fly the county flag of Kent, for example. But without being too miserly on the detail there, I understand exactly what they're getting at, and that Labour source clearly doesn't. I'm as supportive of Ukraine, for example, as anybody else, and it's nice to see that it's been flying on Whitehall central departments. And, it's a real thing as well. You drive around the countryside and you do see a lot of Ukraine flags. I counted 3 when I drove around the little Crown Dependency of Jersey just last week on a break from a work trip there. There's a real thing among Britain and her dependencies to want to support Ukraine.
But that's not the point. That's great. But what I find appalling and galling in equal measure is that we know there are areas of this country run by left-wing councils, and there's an ideology afoot which says that if you fly the St George's flag, somehow it's been taken by the right and you're inciting. No. Why can't we be as proud of that flag as the Ukrainians are of theirs, as the Welsh, the Scots, the Irish, the French? I don't understand it. I never have. What's wrong with it? That's my point.
No, you're completely right. And people do yearn for these kinds of connections and links to things. I think that's perhaps why even Labour are talking about this with the Ukraine flag, is why people associate with some of these things. And it's why you get flags for there's an LGBT rainbow flag. It's not technically a rainbow flag, actually, because it's 6 colours, not 7, but who's counting? And then you get the Pride Progress flag, which includes a few more different chevrons for other bits and bobs. I don't know what it is anymore, days of the week.
Don't say bits and bobs when you're talking about that lot. That'll get you into trouble, won't it?
But people try and they want meaning, and they want to ally themselves into these, get an ally into these sorts of organizations. And so people do kind of crave this, but there is that sort of middle class person that George Orwell described as saying they would rather be caught stealing from the collection plates at church than standing for the national anthem. And it's sort of seen as a bit grisly and grim and low status. So I think we need to get rid of that. Look at America. Politicians of all stripes will wear a little America on their lapel.
And houses will fly the flag irrespective of your political persuasion. That's all I'm saying. Obviously, Reform have decided to hit the ground running. Pierre Youssef is coming out and he's saying this. Pierre Youssef is coming out and he's saying we're gonna fly this. The other thing is they've vowed to use every lever available to stop asylum seekers from being housed in areas where its new control councils are in power. I told the story last week. You sent me a very interesting WhatsApp. Sorry I didn't get back to you, my friend. Datchet, which we used to live next door to in Windsor, don't any longer. The main hotel in this sweet little Sleepy Hollow where people work all their lives and retire by the Thames, that's their choice, thank you very much indeed, has been taken over by 380 migrants who are rolling the streets and smoking and drinking and being abusive, and that's a fact before people jump up and down. I suspect that a bit, I'm going to say Trump-esque, because there's a lot of what Trump did that people go, whoa, but actually they're going to hit the ground running and they're going to say, we want the British flag, and we're not going to do that with migrant hotels. We're going to do locally what we said we are going to do nationally, and I think it'll be a really interesting test for them.
Yeah, I think Reform councillors and Reform voters will now join the Great British Hunt to see where power really does lie in this country, because it ain't with councils. We're the most centralised country in the developed world when it comes to power. So much power is centralised in Whitehall departments, and often, therefore, not, of course, actually elected ministers, but the civil servants and the quangocrats and the regulators and all the rest of it are the ones who secretly hold the power. So it's going to be interesting for Reform to see just how little power these councils actually have over their own local areas. I'm someone who believes that power should be devolved down to where the people making decisions actually have as much skin in the game as possible. You get the best result. That doesn't happen very often here. They're going to see it. But hopefully, I suppose they will be able to kick up enough of a stink and taking things to court and all the rest of it to try and say, I guess their politics will be, look, we've done as best we can here. You need to get us into Westminster. You need to get us into Parliament and into government in order to actually be able to change these things and send power back to the people. I think that will be the clever tactic they use, because their actual governing power, even over these council areas, is going to be limited because so much of it is hoarded, as I say, by the evil, nefarious civil servants on Whitehall.
Just talking, because obviously, thanks. Just talking about last week and those election results. I don't want to go back over that. We know where we're at. Quite interestingly, remember that purple-haired transport secretary got sacked? Was it Louise Haigh for nicking a mobile phone? Those whole fat, by the way. Sir Keir Starmer must tear up Labour's pledge not to raise taxes. Let me see if I'm saying this right. Must tear up not to raise taxes to see off an existential threat for Farage. Louise said she attacked the PM over the government's welfare reforms and his decision to means test the winter fuel allowance. She said she could allow a serious programme of investment and re-industrialisation. So she'd like him to go even further to the left, having upset pensioners with his poll tax moment, having upset veterans and farmers and waspy women. He's being criticised by a woman who was in his cabinet 3 months ago but turned out to be a tea leaf, who says he's not left-wing enough, for Christ's sake. And people, honestly, they sit and they go, oh, I didn't really expect this of Labour. Really? Really? She was the transport sector and he knew she was a tea leaf. What the hell's that all about?
I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? If you think that you've become a convicted fraudster and lost your job in cabinet. I think this person said that they lost a mobile phone, but actually had it all along and claimed for a new one so they could kind of go and sell it off afterwards. Not even a good crime, right? You kind of want a Berlusconi-esque bunga party or some proper great whacker cash, like a decent scandal. But the fact that it was all just so piddling shows the lack of ambition and vision of these people. They can't even do fraud right. But again, having a convicted fraudster come along and tell you that you're not taxing people enough, you're not taking enough money away from people after a disastrous set of elections.
And do you remember Starmer when he had to fire us, said, I didn't know the whole story, but you know she got done for not paying. I mean, the whole thing, that talk about judgment. I mean, extraordinary. But you're absolutely right. I'm not sure we're in a position where we're going to be lectured to by a woman who turned out to be a fraudster who lost one of the highest-ranking government jobs in the country because she was a liar. Louise Haigh, shut your mouth. I mean, that'd be fair, wouldn't it? Love to know what you think of that, friends. 0344 499 1000. Can I ask you, James, right, because I've thrown this out to people, I've got loads already. What makes you most proud to be British?
That is a great question. And I suppose my stumbling is over just how many things to choose from. I think that the number one, I think, is probably the sort of sense of fair play. Now, that sounds very twee, but it's not. It goes back an awfully long way.
I know what you mean.
Has deep Anglo-Saxon roots about the set of common laws, about Magna Carta that comes along, about, no detention without a fair trial and fair representation.
Well,
From that stems it all comes, I think, from kind of Christian values as well. And it has helped create the modern world. It helped create the United States. It helped create Australia and New Zealand and Canada and inspire, frankly, every other developed nation into these things. And when everybody at home gets that burning sense of injustice when they see something unfair happening, I think that is a peculiarly British trait, to really, really care about that and therefore want to stand up for the little guy against the oppressor. And fairness doesn't mean, as some people think it does, just pure equality. It means proportionality. It means that you should get back what you put in. And I think that's another very British trait that stems from the same place. And that's a wonderful thing that we have. And we lose that, and we lose everything.
What do you hate most about Great Britain in 2025? What makes you unproud, for want of a better phrase?
I think that two quick ones. One is this sort of radical over-empathy that suggests that we owe more to literal
Which comes from the last bit you said, because it's taken the morality and the we've always done the right thing and cared. They've taken and run with that and said we should be caring and considered to almost anybody, to the detriment of our own people. That's what winds me up on a daily basis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You took the words out of my mouth perfectly. It's the corruption of the good, decent decency of the British people. Look at it in lockdown. People did what they were told was the right thing, even though it was disastrous for their children's development and all the rest of it. So we got so angry when people broke those rules. It's the root of all of our problems of letting in too many people who don't therefore share our culture. And one other quick one. This idea that all we are is really twee and, oh, we like queuing, don't we? And all the padding stuff, right? Again, all those things are nice to an extent, but being British is so much more than just that. And because if you think it's just, oh, we like to queue, don't we? Then you can teach that very, very quickly to somebody fresh off a boat. It's deeper than that. It's nothing to do with blood, nothing to do with skin colour, but it is to do with an innate sense, as I say, of fair play, of a love of empiricism, of our kind of mercantile nature, of those ties that bind us, of caring for the land, of caring for the environment. Right? All of those things are very, very deep, and they can be taught to us, the air we breathe, not just by going to school, but the institutions that have developed for centuries over this country, and that we should hand those institutions and those traditions on to future generations, rather than saying that all the people who fought and died and worked so hard to build them up were nothing but a bunch of dead old racist white men.
Could not agree more. Put so eloquently. I was just sitting here thinking, oh, it's bank holiday and I'll probably get into trouble, but you say we like queuing. I can think of a quite well-known ex-television presenter who hates queuing, but that's another story. Finally, before we let you go, don't stop. Before we go, Prince Harry, I've been quite outspoken. My father worked for the royal family for years. I tell this story that the very first time I met anybody that was quite senior in journalism, they asked me, and I described him as blank whipped, and I stand by that. I think Brooklyn Beckham is probably now in exactly the same category. Where did these American women come? I put Meghan Markle alongside Wallace Simpson, to be perfectly honest, and Nicola Peltz, the way I feel right now. But let's get to Harry. We've done, and we've sat and we've talked about how, you know, this is because he doesn't get treated and he's the spare. I supported him when he went abroad. He didn't want all of this involvement with the press. Then he sells his soul. Nothing works because she's odious. I thought, I mean, it was here on Thursday or Wednesday when it happened. I thought what he said about his father, not sure how long his father has left, I thought was utterly, utterly disgusting. And I don't know whether this boy will ever wake up to the reality. I wouldn't consider it a rift. To tell you what I do know, if his father does pass and when his brother becomes king, his brother will have absolutely nothing, zero to do with Harry ever again. You want to talk about being cut off, you watch what William will do to him. I don't think he has ever read The Room once. Do you, JP? Not once.
No, I think you're right. And I've gone from being angry about it to being bored by it to just being sad by the whole thing, right? I think he's probably not a very smart chap. He thinks he's doing the right thing because of the horrible stuff that happened to his mum. He thinks he's being virtuous by standing up for his wife. And look, I've got an American wife, and as we've learned from VE Day, when Britain and America work together well, there is no unholy force on this earth that can stop us. But in this scenario, it's not gone terribly well, and I think they brought out the worst sides of each other. So my advice would be go and find an American woman who brings out the best side of you.
Ah, lovely. Listen, happy VE Day. Happy VE Day to Mrs. Price as well. Great to have you on, my friend. We'll speak to you very soon. James Price, former government special advisor, 422. Drive time on Talk. We're live across the UK. Britain commemorating 80th VE Day. Proud. We want to hear from you. Text it, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. What makes you proud about being British? / what makes you bloody angry, depressed and embarrassed by being British? 87222. You can send a WhatsApp today, anything you want to talk about. But if you do send a WhatsApp, Ryan, who produces the show, has new shoes, size 14. Please do start your WhatsApp with Ryan, big shoes, big... and then make your point. 0344 419 1000. Jez, Dino in Oxford, wasn't it sickening to see Starmer fawning over our LD veterans today? This is the very man that took away their heating allowances. Absolutely. Sally, good afternoon. Totally agree with reform closing the migrant hotels, but where the hell will the migrants go if they're just left to wander around and sleep rough? Surely this will cause a bigger issue. We need to know if there's a plan. This from David. I'm proud of the industrial revolution of our war heroes. I'm embarrassed at this bloody government. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. It's Talk Drive.
Well, firstly, you're absolutely right. They were fantastic local election results. We knew there was the opportunity for us to do quite well in a number of places that had elections, but to actually take outright control of 10 county councils, 2 combined authority mayors, and of course the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, which, let's not remember, that was one of Labour's safest seats in the country. The majority that they were defending in that seat was bigger than the majority Keir Starmer has in his own constituency in Holborn and St Pancras. That's the scale of the challenge that we were up against.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Bank holiday Monday, 4:27, drive time with JK. Well, not so much drive time, VE Day, 80th anniversary time here, 0344 499 1000. I just said, listen, what makes you proud to be British on the text, 87222. Start your message with the word talk, or what makes you embarrassed to be British. I'm proud to live in a country that does so many good things, but I can't understand how we tolerate a toe rag like Sadiq Khan as London's mayor. That's good. Trevor Jenkins, big shoes. Big socks, yeah, absolutely. This is because Ryan's bought a brand new pair of shoes. He's got size 14 feet. I'm amazed. Big shoes, big feet, says Anthony, or Tony in Essex, lovely. Penny from Essex, hello. These wonderful men and women prevented us from speaking German. Starmer shaking hands with those heroes when he took their winter payments to them. He's got no shame, has he? The whole bunch are a disgrace. Reform is our only hope. Greg and Carol, a very good afternoon. He must have something big, they say about Ryan. Resounding cheer for reform, says Mark. It's vital that we confidently express our national pride. Our heritage is something to cherish, and our nation, with its people and achievement, stands amongst the best globally ever. Despite Labour's efforts, I believe the strength of the people will ultimately determine the future of the United Kingdom. Hello to Stuart in Perthshire. Hey! Proud our great history, ashamed every post-war government and their hypocrisy on Remembrance Sundays. They pretend to pay their respects for a few minutes whilst totally disrespected our fallen heroes for the last 364 days. To the phone lines, to Birmingham. Mark, you're on Talk Drive. A very good afternoon, a very good happy Bank Holiday Monday, sir. How are you?
Hello, Jezza. How are you, mate?
Not too bad for an old bugger. What do you want?
Just thought I'd give you a bell. I've just come back from seeing my old man. He's 92. He was evacuated from London during the war. When there was a bombing raids, they used to have to hide under the table to stop getting hit by the bombs. He was evacuated during the war. He went to a school in the countryside down in Dorset. He used to watch the Spitfires having dogfights with Messerschmitts over the school fields. They came down, they was quite often shot down, and he would go and try and nick Nazi memorabilia before the air wardens come round and stopped them.
When I love stories like this. Listen, both my parents are passed. My mum used to do a homework in an air raid shelter. They used to talk to me about this the whole time. I hate the fact that people won't not celebrate what happened, but acknowledge the sacrifices and the efforts that so many people made. When you sit there with your old man today, pal, lucky you. What does he think of this mess? What does he think of this overprivileged, bloody, I don't know, nonsense that's going on now?
He can't understand why our country, which should be safe and well run, is now riddled with crime because of unlimited immigration. And nobody's doing anything about it. It's getting worse. There's no possibility of it improving. And, you know, a lot of members of my family and many other families as well died going to stop the Germans over in Europe. For what? It's like we're being replaced. The plan is to replace us one by one.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, that is absolutely my sentiment, and it would have been my old man's sentiment. Yet many people will say that that's not racist, but it's outrageous and we shouldn't think like that. But I think James Price made a really good point. You know, we've always been known as a country that does right by everybody else. I see 2025, I see now as the time where, whether it's Reform and Nigel Farage or it's somebody else, I think somebody is going to stand up and say, we have always done right by everybody else, but right now we need to do right by our own people, because the way it's going, we are putting our own people eighth in the bleeding queue. And I don't care what your political persuasion is. I believe that is where the British people will go, listen, enough is enough. I've given enough. I've done enough. I've made sacrifices. All I want is to be treated with respect in my own country. Now, I've been called saying that's racist. It's not racist at all. That is simply saying, personally, I think that the old couple who have worked all their lives and froze, really, they were really cold this winter, OK, because the government cut off their fuel allowance, and yet we're spending millions every day to house criminals in hotels. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. None.
100%, Jeremy. It's a disgrace, and it needs sorting.
Give my respect to your dad, and I mean that, Marky. We really appreciate your call. 0344 419 1000. Steve in Germany, proud to be English, watching the VE celebrations, just wondering how many of those UK-loving asylum seekers will be out out celebrating today. Hello to some anonymous. Proud when I look at my granddad's medals, which him and his friends received for fighting in the World War chairs. Embarrassed of this bloody woke, condescending, flip-flop, Euro-loving government who are ruining our lives. 0344 419 1000 is the telephone number. Text 87222. It is VE Day. 80th anniversary celebrations are afoot all over the mall. Delighted our next guest, an ex-NATO commander who knows all about this. Rear Admiral Chris Parry. A very good afternoon, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm good. You know me, we can talk about VE Day, but then I want to talk more about how I want this younger generation to understand. Put into words, serving man for many, 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 many years, you reached a level that few could only dream of. What does today mean to you? More importantly, what should it mean to those who don't understand and have no knowledge?
Well, Jeremy, you highlighted it just now. I think we remember the sacrifice and the sheer exertion required to defend our liberties in those days, and also to face down probably the most evil totalitarian regimes that the world has seen. But let's not forget, we had to see down another totalitarian regime in the Cold War as well. For me, it is personal. My father served in World War II. My mother, still alive, was strafed by a Luftwaffe plane. 13 of her classmates were killed in Bromley. So I've been in touch with her today, and it's very important. We have to remember just how evil the regime that we were facing was. It not only industrially killed people by their millions, it also had allies in the Japanese that did the same in the Far East. And what it should mean to us today is we're seeing echoes of those regimes with China, Russia and Iran today, and we need to face them with the same fortitude, effort and sacrifice right now. I've been saying to my students this week, we're not in peacetime anymore. No. We're in a deterrent time. We have to deter these threats to our freedoms and liberties, and we also have to be united in our own country about what our values are and what it is we seek to defend.
Do you believe, I don't want to make it too political, but do you believe that the results of that by-election last week, and also those local council elections, which saw reform, it was an extraordinary result? And yes, there will be people who will say midterms and, you know, that's what happens. But to me, it was pretty seismic, and it was the moment at which the British people refused to be taken for idiots any longer. And James Price, you won't have been listening because you've been running around, I know you will have been, but he was saying that we've always been known as the nation that does right by everybody, the nation that behaves in the right way, the nation that sort of morality was always there. We were always caring, we were always moral, but we've reached a point now, because we seem to be governed by ideology, because we seem to reach out to almost anybody bar our own, where I think the British people are going to be saying, hold on a minute, not racist, I'm not unconcerned about what's going on in the world, but right now there are things in this country that need addressing. And I think that patriotism from VE Day, 80th anniversaries, I think all of this is interesting because I think it's all part of it. You just talked about values. Every value that I was brought up to believing is trounced by today. It's not right, it's this, it's this, it's this. I hear people tell me Winston Churchill was racist. I'm not painting Winston Churchill out as a hero or somebody who was perfect the whole time. But all those people that slag off Winston Churchill wouldn't be sat in their bleeding houses with the liberties and the freedoms they've got today if it wasn't for what happened all those years ago. And that really tends to wind me up, because I want people to be educated and understand that this country, it's called Great Britain. I fear we're losing that, and I sort of rail against it, Chris. Do you know what I mean?
There's a yawning gap between our political class and the great British people. I trust the British people to make the right decisions about their present and their future, quite frankly. But we, I'm afraid, have abdicated our sovereign rights to people who are not worthy of it.
I completely agree. Did you see the Reform thing today about the flags? This afternoon, the chairman of Reform, Zia Youssef, has announced that the 10 councils that they control now, the Union flag and the St George's Cross will be the flags that fly from those buildings. Immediately, Labour's jumped up and go, what about the Ukraine flag? Nobody's saying about the Ukraine. They're saying we're going to replace an ideology that apparently says that if you fly the St George's Cross in your garden or off your building, that's being disrespectful to other religions, despite the fact that everybody else seems to do it. It's an absolute bugbear for me, that, by the way.
No, I mean, absolute double standards. Everybody's talking about two-tier this, two-tier that. It's true. We are bending over backwards to accommodate the sensitivities of people, frankly, who should be grateful to be here in this country. If you want to be British, then you've got to start declaring that you are proud to be British. I'm one of those people, Jeremy, who believes you shouldn't have dual and multiple passports. You know, you should have a single passport if you're British. You shouldn't have the ability to say, well, actually, today I'm happy to be Albanian, Pakistani or American. No, you know, you can have various visas to actually allow you to have better entry and exit procedures. But frankly, if you're a British passport holder, you've got to uphold the heritage, the values and the sort of community that we seek to uphold. I'm sick to death, particularly from this government, of hearing about various splinter communities, these sort of enclaves or colonies that exist within our country. We have a single national community, and if people aren't prepared to subscribe to a single national community and all that brings with it in terms of heritage, in terms of pride and in terms of commitment, then this isn't the country for you.
I mean, I think that's the point. It was made just now, wasn't it, in a text from somebody who said, you know, I wonder how many of those migrants who have found their way into this country will be celebrating VE Day. To me, it's I've never understood this. You'll be able to describe this far better than me. I've listened to people tell me all these people are coming from war-torn countries. That's claptrap. I don't understand. If you were escaping a war-torn country, bring your wife and kids into the first place. It's not bombing. You stay there. But here's the thing.
But also, Jeremy, they're going back for holidays and to these war-torn countries and places. If you go back to a country from which you have sought asylum, you should be denied re-entry. It's as simple as that.
But my point is this. If I take you at face value and you're coming to this country because so much of your own country is heinous and unsafe and whatever, and it ties into what you just said on VE Day, why do they, and so many of them, spend their entire lives and time here slagging off what we are, slagging off who we've been, slagging off how we do everything, and trying to imprint on the British nation stuff that apparently they didn't want anything to do with, which is why they came to the United Kingdom in the first place. I think that's a really relevant point. I really do. Yeah. I'm with you. You know, I tell this story every night of a guy who drives me when I get to the station if I haven't got my car. He came over from Bangladesh 40 years ago with his dad. His dad said to him and his two brothers, you will be proud of this country, the opportunities you've been given. He's set up a really successful taxi business. He pays his tax. His kids are English. He's probably as patriotic as you and me tied together, Chris. And I love the bloke. He does not understand how you can come here and sponge and slag it off, and neither do I. But more importantly, I think the British people have probably reached a point where they're going, can't do this anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Jeremy, simply, we've got people who've come over here and they've colonised us. You know, they're using us as an economic platform. They're not actually subscribing to the society in which they're living. You know, I've tweeted today, in the last 10 days, we've seen an amphibious landing by a whole brigade's worth of people on our shores. Now, you know, I'm an ex-amphibious commander. That takes some doing. But, you know, a full brigade has landed on our shores. By the end of the year, the equivalent of what we landed on D-Day will have landed on our shores.
Beyond me, Chris, it's always a pleasure, my friend. We hope you enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday, like me, chasing children around. Blessed little children. Bless him. Thank you very much indeed. 20 minutes to 5 o'clock. If you want to be on, you can ring Jodie. She's here. She's looking lovely. 0344 499 1000. You can WhatsApp Ryan. He hasn't had a WhatsApp yet. Start it with Ryan. Big feet, big whatever, or text us 87222. What makes you proud to be British? And also, what makes you incredibly embarrassed to be British? This is Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Bank Holiday Monday, the day we celebrate the VE Day 80th anniversary. And for Talk, Alicia Fitzgerald live outside Buckingham Palace. Alicia, how are you?
I'm all right, thanks, Jeremy. How are you?
Good. I've been taking loads of calls already. Just explain to me, I know you're young and, you know, for that older generation it means probably a little bit more. What's been the feeling today, genuinely, on the streets? Do you feel like the younger generation are beginning to grasp quite how important all of this is, genuinely, our heritage and what happened all those years ago?
Yeah, I mean, definitely from the atmosphere here. Actually, when we looked into the crowds and we spoke to quite a lot of people, there was quite a big range in terms of generations. There were lots of people, you know, here with their kids, but also lots of kind of teenage-ish upwards Gen Zs, maybe if you want to categorise it that way, also there. So I don't feel like this was an event purely attracting, you know, the over 60s. I do feel like there was a big range of people around, and also just a very solemn yet a very proud day across the board for sure.
It's interesting that word that you say, proud, because there's so much division at the moment and so many different parts of this country seemingly fighting against each other. But it is moments like this, isn't it, that brings us together, which I think is testament to how important the past is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also something that's quite unique about the events we see today, because of course there's a political undertone, as with any celebration like this or any kind of commemoration of a war. However, this is so not party political in any sense. This is just about being British and about a British victory, albeit a very sad and difficult one that happened all those years ago. And I think it's just a very big sign about coming together. And there were all sorts of different people here. I mean, there were people from London, people from up north, people from other countries. I mean, there really was absolutely everyone you could imagine.
And what was it like being there in the centre of it? Does it? I'm being straight. Tell me to mind my own business. But does it make you? Does it drag you into something like that? Does it make you proud? Do you think that that's one of the powerful things of VE Day? Because actually, in this moment where there is all that division I've talked about, it is something that, you know, unashamedly we should say, bloody hell, we would not be where we are without these amazing people having made the sacrifices and stuck to the values they believed in as they did, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the key point, really. This is all just about those events that happened, that terrible period where so many people had to sacrifice so much, you know, from the worst being their lives, but also even smaller things as well. Just, you know, the place that they called home, all of these, you know, things that maybe we take for granted now. And it just showed that without that, we would not be the country that we are today. And I know lots of people are not particularly proud of the country we might be today, but that's just today was very much a testament. I know you are, but I'm not sure everyone shares your sentiment, as we've definitely been hearing over the past few weeks.
I'm not proud of where we've become, what we've become and what we've allowed ourselves to be, but I'm proud of the basis of this country and why we are at where we're at. But no, I'm with you on that. What was the flyover like? I missed it. I was on a train. Was it incredible?
It was. I have to be honest about this one. I don't want to make people jealous, but seeing it in person was really, really impressive. I think it's one of those things that you kind of maybe see on television. You think, oh, that's kind of cool, but actually watching it go overhead was so impressive. The red, white, and blue at the back and everything. It was amazing, and the cheers in the crowd were really loud as well. So yeah, it was a very, very cool thing to see.
And the royals showed their faces. Did they? Quite a few of them up on the balcony and mingling.
Yeah, they did. I mean, 3 generations, apparently disputably 4 generations, but that's up for debate at the moment. 3 generations definitely.
What does that mean for? What does that mean for?
Well, someone corrected me earlier and said there's actually 4 generations, but I can't work out who the fourth.
Hold on a minute. Prince Charles,
so I'm going to leave
Charles, that one. William, George. George hasn't had a baby yet, as he's only 9. What are you talking about? No, 3 generations.
How about there's a question to anyone listening. If anyone can identify who the 4th generation royal is, then please send a voice note to Jeremy. And
actually, I'm just being told,
to the best of my knowledge,
the Duke of Kent. But yeah, I suppose you could. Yeah, maybe. Robert Jobson is, of course, the royal editor, and he will be here next. Alicia, bless you. I really appreciate it. So is that it now? Are you wrapped up now? Is it camera in the bag and home for a glass of well-deserved vino, or are you? How long you been there today, love? How long you been there?
Since it's morning, but it's fine. You know, it's been pretty nice. But in typical British luck, it's sunny now, and it's been really cold and raining for most of the day until we finish. So classic.
Well, listen, really, really grateful for you being with us today. Thank you, Alicia Fitzgerald, political correspondent outside Buckingham Palace, celebrating quite rightly V-Day 80th anniversary. And next, actually, I asked that question about the royal editor. Next is a man who knows everything about anything to do with the royal family, the legend that is Robert Jobson, who will not only tell me how many generations were on that balcony, but he's going to sit and listen to me tell him why I think that ginger idiot should be cast aside, literally out of the royal family, have his title taken from him, should be banned from the United Kingdom. There, I've said it. We're here with Talk.
and it's gone from being a shock every time it happens to almost becoming a new normal, which we can't allow to happen. But you say the BBC aren't helping. It's worse than that. The BBC has contributed massively to the rise in anti-Semitism in this country, and to the precarious position in which the Jewish community in this country now finds itself. For a lot of people who aren't that close to this issue, it might sound like an astonishing thing to say, but, you know, it's borne out by the evidence from day one.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 8 minutes to 5 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Talk is the home of free speech and common sense, and unashamedly proud of the United Kingdom, as is the royal editor Robert Jobson. A very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Very good, Jeremy.
How many Oh, he's going to get it right. How many generations?
No, but I whispered it and Jodie passed it on to you. It was the Duke of Kent.
Oh, I thought
I told her.
Is it the Duke? But was he?
Yeah, it's Queen's cousin, isn't he? It's the Queen's cousin. So, first cousin. He was a bit younger than her, about 8 years or so. But yeah, he's the great he's the those Queen's cousins. So therefore, that is that generation.
I'm actually at this moment very glad my father is no longer on this earth, because he literally would have rung me and gone, "You don't understand anything, dear boy. You've got it wrong. Robert needed to tell you." Just for you, before we talk about the Ginger Whinger, watching the crowds line the mile, watching the royal family come out, mingle, do what they do. I said it earlier. This country was sort of based on us, our greatness, being our morality, our care and all that. To me, that's been usurped and used and thrown back in the faces of so many. But when you see things like today, it reinforces why this country, I believe, will survive whatever government is in, whatever madness is taking place, because the people can be strong in their beliefs, can't they?
Well, let's hope so. I mean, we're seeing an awful lot of nonsense going on at the moment. And I think, you know, when you're not allowed to fly your flag, you're not allowed to say this and do that, it's all becoming a bit ridiculous. And I think that actually there's been some sort of, that last set of elections has sort of made people sit up and think a little bit and say, come on. I watched a programme this morning, Britain and the Blitz, because my mum, who passed away not that long ago, was born at the beginning of the war. And she used to watch all these things. And that really does sum up the spirit, really, of what we went through during 39-45 war. And it really is something special. I mean, there were some stories that even now you watch it, and there's stories that make you cry about a girl that, you know, she was seeing a Battle of Britain pilot, and she knew that he asked her to marry her, but they didn't sleep together or anything like that. You know, they went to their separate rooms, and sadly he passed away. About a little boy that the sister ran into the schoolroom to dive on top of him to save his life, and she sadly died. You know, we forget exactly what was going on. We were the last people standing.
Lest we do, Robert, and you're so right, because you know, we've talked off air that that's exactly what my parents told me every single day. She did her homework in an air raid shelter. His father was a warden, and you hear that, and you know, I remember during lockdown going to visit him, and he jokingly, you know, my old man was a rogue, wasn't he? I said, "How are you doing?" He said, "Well, it's great." He said, "You know, the women can't get away from me because the doors are locked." But more than that, he went 3 meals a day. There's no rationing. The lights are on, and that was genuinely what they went through for 6 long years. And I think that what happens is, when these important days come around, I'd love to use it to ram it down the... I'm not against everything, but I do wish we would hold on to our core values and the things that I wish I could say to the younger generation. Do you know why you're bloody well here? Do you know why you have...
I mean, talking about this, I used to talk endlessly about these things, but I look at it, and the role of the king in that was really, really, and the Queen, late Queen Mother, was very, very important. Yeah. And the fact that they were all there in uniform today, there's some even criticising, you know, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Edward, for being in uniform. He's there in that role to play the position. And I just think that the royal family do a terrific job when it comes to the events like this. And it is about making people understand what this country is all about. When you know, the reality is that we do it very well. But apart from that, it's not just pomp and pageantry. It's the real stories behind it. The communities that really did battle. You know, when we were the last bastions of the free world until the Americans come in midway through the war. you know, we held out against a tyranny. And I think that is something that should never be forgotten. And when people criticise Churchill, a man who was born in Victorian England, for being a racist, it's utterly preposterous. He's a man of his time. And without him, without the man, you know, we would be talking, you know, what would we be doing?
We're talking German.
We'd be under a different system of government. There's no doubt about that.
I am unashamedly proud of the core values, the sacrifices and the beliefs that sustained so many all those years ago, and the more people that say, and I think you're right. I think politically last week, without making it about that, I mean today Reform have announced, their chairman's announced that in the councils that they've won, the Union flag and the St George's Cross will be flown. The Labour Party have gone, what about the Ukrainian flag? Nothing anti-Ukrainian, you stupid muppets, but actually
but that's the point.
Nothing wrong with being proud of being British.
Yeah, I think that look, I mean, I went for a ceremony the other day. I got made a Freeman of the City of London. It's an old-fashioned system and an old ceremony. But actually, our country's been built over thousands, hundreds of years, you know, on systems and different things and institutions that help create a better world, help create more wealth. And I think that the royal family does a terrific job when it comes to these things. And I think that, you know, the king, who's still on chemotherapy, you know, there he was leading the nation today. His mother would have been incredibly proud of him, and I think that all of the royal family did us proud today. But you know, when you sit along the sides, some of these guys, 101-year-olds and people that had served, you know, it's quite incredible that these people, what they still bring to the party today. And I think that
you know, you're like me, and my father-in-law's listening because he's texted me, right?
Yeah.
I look at those veterans, I look at that fawning git of a Prime Minister shaking the hands of pensioners whose money he's taken away so that they were cold this winter. But let's even put that to one side. I look at those men and women who sacrificed, who, you know, had to go down air raid shelters as the Luftwaffe were coming over, right? The Messerschmitts were flying. This is the reality of their lives for years and years. And then we have a world where apparently you can identify... I'm sounding like my dad, I might know. You can identify as a cat, and it's really important that you get called the right pronouns, and have you upset somebody with some hurty words. And I want to shake these bloody people, Robert, and go, come on, for God's sake.
They were 20 years old. You know, these guys that got in those Spitfires and Hurricanes, they'd probably done 2, 3, 4, 5 hours training. Yeah. They were up there, and the chances of them living were so ridiculously slim. Yet they were 21 years old, 20 years old. And they were, you know, I think that people should be made to read the history of this country, not made to read the history of whatever latest fad there is, but it should be part of the curriculum, and it should be taught unashamedly that what they were doing was brave and courageous, and they were trying to save their country.
Do you know what? I've not heard anybody say that, but I'm going to take that up because you are absolutely wrong. Why in our schools, when we allow them to identify as cats and it's a toilet, we should actually be teaching our children. What do you think of this, people, actually? Robert Jobson's spot on right. We should be teaching our children our history, our heritage, our values and the sacrifices that were made. 0344 499 1000. Are you a busy man, Robert Jobson? Are you going to tell me to do one? Will you just stay with me after the news for 3 minutes?
Of course I will. I'm just watching to see if Southampton United have got to the playoffs on my other computer, but I will stay.
Well, that'll be an exciting watch for the next 3 minutes. We might get a traffic and travel report from Ratner. Can I give a shout out to the traffic and travel guys? I've never known anybody so enthusiastic. If you are in charge of traffic and travel, James Ratner needs to be the king. We're heading to the news at 5. It's Bank Holiday Monday on VE Day, our 80th anniversary celebrations. 0344 499 1000. News at 5 is next.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk, of course. Bank Holiday Monday. Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. You wake up with Mike Graham's Morning Glory and you drive home, you lucky people, with me. Oh, God, there's so much to talk about. But predominantly, we were talking to my good friend Robert Jobson, Royal Editor, before about those celebrations in the Mall and how he said, and I believe him to be absolutely right, wouldn't it be great if within the education system of this country, in between sort of saying, oh, please live as a bear or, you know, live as a cat and all that crap, actually we taught these kids, this generation, how important the sacrifices were that the generation of past have done and why we are where we are. Robert, good news, Southend made it.
They did, they're in the playoffs, which is quite good.
Are you a Southend United fan?
I am. My dad used to be chairman. He's been dead 25 years, but he was chairman for 25 years when we used to be in the Football League.
My friend, now this is very interesting because my mate used to be the manager of Southend, Phil Brown.
Oh, Phil Brown, yeah. Phil Brown's a good guy. Phil Brown was a good guy.
It all went a bit wrong when he got his players on the pitch.
The last chairman didn't. It wasn't too great, but
no.
Ron Martin. But Phil did quite well. But Bobby Moore, of course, was manager at Southend. And we had Stan Collymore. So yeah, I'm very. I was just hanging on there with it. We had to get a draw away at Gateshead, so we did.
Good for you, mate. We've talked about VE Day and we've talked about how the Royals have led and how important that is. You and I spoke last Wednesday, albeit briefly, after that incendiary interview with the BBC from Prince Harry. Yeah. And I have read for the last 4 days much stuff and I've watched people's outraged, which I completely understand. He's been accused of losing touch with reality. I think you, and I said it in a newspaper interview over the weekend, were more spot on than anybody. The thing that came out of his mouth that I found most disrespectful and hurtful was when he said, I don't know how much longer my father's got. And I think that was just as low as possible, because if you add into that, if your father is ill, if he's implying that he's very ill, what the hell do you think this performance, this ongoing, miserable, pathetic whinging with his awful wife, what do you think that's doing to your father's health, you selfish git?
Well, the reality is, you know, he will have information from places that the palace won't want this information out. I feel the King has put up an incredibly stoic performance, really, particularly in the last year. He's had to take on be king at a time, after the death of the Queen, who was this incredible figure historically, and he's done a terrific job. But in the last year of it, whilst on chemotherapy, which is, pumping poisoning into his system, and yet he's got his son who's so deluded, it seems to me. I mean, I don't know what he does day to day apart from pick up fake awards and just give out. I just don't know what he does. I mean, he's got too much time on his hands, really, to be, to sit there and talk about his father and his family in this way. He should just realise it's time to stop the talking now. And if you want to build bridges, do it privately, do it behind the scenes. Eventually, it will come good. But you
I actually don't. Well, I was going to jump in. I actually disagree with you for the first time probably in my life. There's two things I want to say about that. One is I wrote a really interesting article in the Times, Sunday Times, over the weekend, which said that the real issue here is that, forget courtiers, that King Charles cannot trust that a private conversation between him and his youngest son for any attempt at reconciliation would not end up across the world in the news, and that is
particularly whilst that case was going on with the security, because it would have been unconstitutional, and he could have used that in a legal fight. His legal case, so my father said I should have it, and that would have been disastrous for the King's position as a constitutional head of state. So, yeah, I mean, you can't trust him, and this is the problem. But at some stage, I do hope, as on a human level, that there's some way to get back. But the guy has let everyone down, hasn't he? He's not only written a book, he's done all these documentaries, but he continues to do these things, and in a way that's totally disrespectful. And ultimately the trust is gone. And but that, I mean, even that said, I still hope. It must be an awful situation that they're in for the King, really. I mean, I'm sure. I feel for
the King, but my second point is, and I mean, you'll tell me if I'm right or wrong. I think that the person who will take revenge, and revenge is probably the wrong word, I think the man who will be most forceful will be when William becomes king, because I think the things that are at the very epicentre of the monarchy, which is decency and the mystique and all that stuff, he's had it ingrained in him from his grandmother. Every Sunday from Eton up the road, go and have lunch and have dinner and all that sort of stuff. He is a proper, true royalist, and I think he has been, apart from the insults to his wife, I think he will have been appalled by the way his brother has behaved to an institution that he believes in. Yeah, absolutely.
The racism thing was damaging, and he was the only one, wasn't he, that said we're not a racist family. He came straight out and said it. And I think that's probably the way he will handle it. He will take the bull by the horns. I think that when he is king, and when that moment does come, hopefully it's not for a while yet, that I think the idea of any HRHs being utilised will be formally something will formally happen to stop that happening.
Would you strip them of being called the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? Would you?
I don't think I necessarily think it's necessary to do that. I think that they should have been very stronger when it came to the HRHs. They didn't give the HRH to Wallis Simpson, and I think that there's absolutely no reason why, really, if you think about it, Harry is not really a working royal anymore. He became HRH at birth. There's no reason while really that Meghan Markle, who was a royal duchess for 5 minutes, should have the title of Royal Highness. No, even if you're not allowed to use it and all that for business purposes, forget all that. She shouldn't have the title of Royal Highness, really.
Completely agree. And just to finish it off, and it's so good of you to join us today, and I mean that, on the day that we celebrate the 80th anniversary of V-Day, on the day you see all those royals, stoic, the King, after 12 months of chemotherapy, I had it for 6 weeks, it's utterly bloody horrific, continues to run this country, is bashed by his son. Wouldn't you hope that his son, somewhere in his pea-sized brain, could sit there and go, this is a really important day for our country and for our history, and there's me doing some bitchy interview from California going, oh, I'm not getting my way. Ridiculous. And I think...
It's totally entitled. He's a totally spoiled, entitled brain. I think, he's obviously not really got the intellect to work things out, or if he has, he's a very spiteful individual.
I would say he and Brooklyn Beckham have a lot in common. Listen, well done to Southend United. Robert Jobson, the royal editor. Good to have you on. 5:10. Let's go to the phone lines. We've got a Newcastle man. Way, man. Can do the tune, Karen. How are you?
That is absolutely terrible, Jeremy.
All right, let's do it again. How are you, pet?
I'm Irene.
Irene, pet. Irene.
Actually, I've just come back from Southend as well. We've been visiting family down there.
Where are you in my favourite city? Where are you?
I'm in a place called North Kenton.
You think I don't know? Oi, you what? Say that again.
I'm in a place called North Kenton where your old friend Rob used to hang around.
Listen, Rob Armstrong and Kenton go together like, yeah, absolutely. Don't let's talk about Kenton, Princess. Right, what you got for me, kiddo?
Right, I have to talk about Harry. I can't call him Prince. I'm sorry about this, but his interview with the BBC was a bigger car crash than Prince Andrews. He keeps digging a hole. The British public or anyone just don't care anymore. We're fed up with hearing him cry victim. He's going on to the BBC, the same BBC that screwed over his late mother with the Bashir interview.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
It's just getting out of hand. The only reason Harry wants a reconciliation with his family is because he doesn't want to lose his titles from William. I just think, yes, the king is ill. I do think that the king needs to stop being a king instead of a father and just say, right, the titles are gone. Instead of him mouthing up to Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper and saying, oh, well, if they've got the security, why can't I get the security?
Because you're nothing to do with the royal family. You didn't want anything to do with it. The only way that you eat with that odious woman is by slagging off the very thing you don't want to be part of. Why am I going to give you the benefit of working? You know, you work for a company. You get a company car, you get benefits, you get medical, whatever. You don't work for the company. That's like saying, oh, by the way, could I just have a company car from your... I know I don't work for you, but I feel like I should sod off. It does my head in, and also why it does my head in is today, of all days, when you see the king, and he's obviously got cancer, and he's obviously going through it, and you see his family all studiously doing and stoically doing the right thing, their duty, the proudness of this country. And what's that little git doing? Doing interviews where he's moaning about his life and how ungrateful they are and how difficult it is. He doesn't even know how to spell the word difficult. I am so with you. Kaz, next time I speak to Rob, I'll give him your love. All right, love?
All right, pet.
Good. All right, pet. Where you, man? Can do the tune. I'm going. Bless her. That's Karen in Newcastle. I don't know her, but I know a man who knows her. 0344 499 1000. We set this challenge earlier. We asked you this question. On VE Day, what do you think makes Britain great? What makes Britain great? / what embarrasses the bits off you? Hello to, I don't know who this is. What makes me proud, Jez, is the NHS, our British history, the royal family and our armed forces. What makes me embarrassed is our government and the younger generation's lack of respect for our values. Hello to Paula in Kent. I'm embarrassed about a loss at the moment, but I will always be proud and supportive of our veterans, our history through centuries. I will not be ashamed and will continue to stand for our national anthem and flying our flag. I think our country's flags will also be respected by reform that's different to the national flag. This is on the news that Zia Youssef, the Reform Party chairman, has this afternoon announced that the Union flag and the St George's flags will only the flags to be allowed to fly on council buildings run by Reform. Hurrah! Say a lot of people, not Labour. They're going, what about the Ukraine flag? It's not against Ukraine, you idiots. It's about being proud of Britain. Nicholas Hubbard, what a great name. I was appalled that the reaction to the Reform gains in the local elections was a doubt that they could manage the councils with one simple stroke, banning all the flags. But the British and flag of St George's, of course, country flags will be allowed. They have given hope to us all. Now we do not want to see Ukraine. It's not that we don't want to see Ukrainian flags. What we want to see is pride in ours. Hello to Jez in Sussex. I'm glad to hear Reform said about flying flags. I'm proud to have both the Union and the St George's flags on the back of my car. And if that upsets some spineless lefty, stuff it. Jim's in Cambridge. Nice. During the war, my father was given 2 prisoners of war to help him on his farm. They had a small hut where they could cook and wash. After the war ended, they came back for about 5 years to see my father, and they always brought him back a simple bottle of whiskey just to say thank you for looking after us. That's a nice story. Steve Chandler. How can two-tier Keir have the front to pretend to salute our armed forces? Because he'll be soon prosecuting them, making them homeless and making sure the older ones die of frostbite. Quite right. Jay's in Lincolnshire. Just want to say that was beautifully said by James earlier about the pride in this country. Ash in Slough. How can we get Chris Parry as the Defence Minister in a reform government? Well, he'll have to win a seat like the rest of us might try to do. Did I say that? Jeremy, it's Richard. I'm proud of the UK because of the freedom and technology we're given the world. We need to put up secured tents and marquees in Dover to process illegal migrants. This will be a lot cheaper. I'm sure with all our technological brilliance we can work out how to pitch a tent. Brilliant. 87222, start your message with the word talk. That is the number, the text number. I want to know what makes you proud to be British and what makes you massively embarrassed. One thing that makes me proud to be British is when we go live to a very, his country seat. You'll look at the drapes, you'll look at the furniture, and you know that Benedict Spence is one of the good guys. A very good, look at that, look at the drapes, look at the drapes. Not a cheap blind from IKEA to be seen, ladies and gentlemen. Drape, drape, drape. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Jeremy. How are you?
Not bad. I don't know where to start today. I'll start, obviously, with the pride I feel for VE Day, the 80th anniversary, the crowds lining the Mall, the royal families being stoic, and we'll talk about all the BS after that. But days like today make me realise that we might be all right, and actually in times of hardship and times when we do the right thing, we're all right, aren't we?
We are, but I'd prefer it that we don't have to get to that situation for us to rediscover that kind of spirit, that kind of can-do, that kind of dignity, frankly. You know, I think that actually, rather than sort of sit there thinking, wow, we can be very great, it sort of makes me a bit forlorn to think this is what we do, actually. We allow ourselves to sort of spiral, and then we think back to a time when we were a lot better and people had it a lot harder and had to do very difficult things in order to get through. And that is something to be proud of. But at the same time, you sort of look around at the general state of the country now and you think, wouldn't those people, because there are not a lot of them left, what would they make of the situation?
They'd be turning in their grave, absolutely turning in their belief. My old man would be turning in his grave. But I mean, that's a fact. Just wouldn't understand. If I said to him, you dodged the Luftwaffe, you were in, and he'd go, and there's people in schools dressing up as cats and people saying that you can't criticise anybody, you can't fly your flag, you can't do this, you can't do that. It doesn't make any sense at all. Does not make any sense. And when you think that generation, the sacrifices they made to, in effect, give us our liberty and freedom, we seem to be giving it away, in my humble opinion.
What makes me feel particularly irritated by it is that the Second World War was a correction of a major mistake, which was the First World War. It's it's wrong to think of them as different conflicts. One is simply the overcorrection of the other. Millions died in the First World War. Millions died because nations sleepwalked into a catastrophe, and they did it because there simply was this view that it can never get that bad. Things will always be fine. And the war it'll be a short thing. It'll be over by Christmas. And you don't need to prepare for these sorts of things because Britain will always be fine because it is this year. And I see so many echoes of that today. Think, everything will be fine and everything because it's 2025 and therefore it is just naturally all going to work out fine. You don't need to worry about making the hard decisions. You don't need to worry about, taking the tough choices or anything like that. And that is exactly how we found ourselves in the First World War. And it happened because Europe found itself being dragged into a conflict. And you think, well, there is a war going on in Europe right now. And even now, Britain and Germany and France and the rest of them are sort of sat there twiddling their fingers thinking, well, it's rather expensive, it's rather difficult to do these heavy things and to make the right decisions. I'm sure it'll be fine that America will bail us out. We don't seem to actually be learning the lessons, and I would say that very importantly. Not the lessons of the Second World War. It's the lessons of the First World War that caused the Second World War that we still don't appear to have learned.
Completely agree with you. I don't know where to start with you. This afternoon, Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman, his party has gained control of 10 councils across the United Kingdom, including, of course, Kent, Lincolnshire, Derbyshire and Lancashire. I don't know why I said obviously, because I'm reading that. Because if I knew, I wouldn't read it, would I? He says, and I quote, they will only allow councils the Union flag and the St George's Cross to be flown from the buildings. This has been met with a wave of euphoria by our viewers and our listeners. Hurrah! The Labour Party up in arms already. What about the Ukrainian flag? I've said this to you privately and I've said it publicly. Great, fly the Ukrainian flag. But why the hell in this country are we the only country in the goddamn world that if we fly the St George's Cross, apparently we're racist, apparently we're disrespectful? I'm not even going to mention the flags because people will jump up and down a bit. But I mean, I see enough Palestinian flags. I see flags everywhere. But apparently, if you fly that, it's deemed a hate crime. That is what is wrong. And that will be incredibly popular because people will say, yeah, the United Kingdom flag, the St George. Don't you think that's a good thing, Benedict?
I think that there's something that people are getting quite picky about, which is, does this mean you're not going to be able to fly local regional flags? Does that mean that the flag, for example, of Lancashire or Yorkshire isn't going to be allowed? And I think that that shows the kind of the level of debate that has actually, that this has descended to, which is that Reform have taken a policy which is pretty universally popular amongst most people. You want the Union flag and you want England's flag, and they've gone, oh, but what about this, and oh, but what about that, oh, there's a loophole here, oh, there's a loop, which of course means what they're saying is, so we should really be allowed to fly any flag, because otherwise you're being bigoted and you're not even allowing them to fly their local authority flags. Look, Zia Yusuf is not opposed to the idea of people flying the flag of Sussex or Norfolk or wherever it is. Of course that'll happen, but I think he is making the point, and I do agree with him, that actually other nations' flags are not for municipal buildings in the UK. I'd actually go as far as to say that we shouldn't really be putting the Ukrainian flag up all the time. I think it's fine to do it in sort of moments of solidarity, for people to do it individually, that's fine. But I think that has slightly... The whole thing about flags being sort of part of our identity and having to grab different other nations' flags to sort of, be part of the cause, I don't like it. And you raised the example of the Palestinian flag right there. It's not really a sign of solidarity for Palestinians at all. No. It's an alternative kind of ideology.
James Price said something
earlier.
Never
been to Palestine would quite like to have.
James Price said something earlier which I thought was really important in terms of that whole flag thing. We have a situation. I mean, they've also announced today they're going to end migrant hotels, right? Now, of course, that again will be very popular, and whether there will be legal ramifications to all of that. But I've always thought that the big issue that's coming down the road is not actually the reasons why migration happens, because it is beyond me that a whole bunch of politicians can't stop the boats or the lorries or whatever. I mean, I'm being completely serious, but that if the United Kingdom is such a wonderful option for so many people escaping war-torn countries, in brackets, I don't believe they're all war-torn, close brackets, because you'd bring your family open. It'll get me, I'll be on it all afternoon. Well, why do people come to this country and then trash everything, and I mean everything, that apparently made it so attractive in the first place? Somebody sent a very simple text message to me when this show started. I wonder how many thousands of migrants who are illegally in this country took to the streets to celebrate VE Day today, which was what this country achieved 80 years ago, which allows this country to apparently allow them to come in and get everything they're getting. I think that's a perfectly justifiable comment. I really do.
Yeah, I suspect not very many did, because it doesn't really mean anything to most of them. And
but this country means something because we're soft and we give away too much, right?
This country means something because it's financial opportunity. That's the long and short of it. They don't come here. A lot of, some people do come here because they want to be British. And actually, we have had some success with the British East Asian, African East Asian, community. And a lot of Caribbeans came here as well, wanting to be British. But the majority of migrants coming today are, A, not fleeing war. They're not especially up against it in terms of poverty in their own country, if we're being honest. This is also a very racist British attitude, which is just to assume that every African is poor and is coming here because they're escaping poverty. They're not. Africa has a booming middle class now. They're coming here because of the economic opportunities, because we are foolish enough to give them those economic opportunities, and because we are too deferential to say, actually, you're taking the something or other. This is part of the British character, that we like to look for the best in people. We like to sort of give people the benefit of the doubt.
But this is what. Are you all right? Double bubble on bank holiday. You got to stay after the break. But can I just take that point? We're too good to say, oh, whatever. But we will take the PISS out of our own people. So we're too scared to say to a bunch of migrants, of course you didn't leave a war-torn country because you've left your wife and children behind. And why would you leave your wife and children to be bombed to death, you idiots? Why have you thrown your paper in the sea? Why have you disappeared? All that we allow. You're coming here because we're as soft as whatever. That's the real reason. But actually, at the same time, to pay for that, our own people, veterans, farmers, the elder, waspy women, whatever you want, right, are being screwed over. That's why, for me, last week was really important. Whether Nigel Farage is the next Prime Minister, ends up with 5,000 seats or 50 seats, I think the British people, Benedict Spence, have woken up to the fact that their voice can be heard, that it doesn't mean that you're racist or unfair or immoral if you say, really sorry, But I'm sort of, I mean, I should be ahead of you in the queue. I've done everything, and I'm looking for. Oh no, sorry, we're at the back. Why is that? Well, you're not a migrant. You've used, and to me, that is what is going to change. Are you okay to hang on? I mean, it's not like you've got a life. You're like me. Don't go anywhere. Just sit there. Get a glass of milk. 5:25. Benedict's next.
And it's gone from being a shock every time it happens to almost becoming a new normal, which we can't allow to happen. But you say the BBC aren't helping. It's worse than that. The BBC has contributed massively to the rise in anti-Semitism in this country, and to the precarious position in which the Jewish community in this country now finds itself. For a lot of people who aren't that close to this issue, it might sound like an astonishing thing to say, but, you know, it's borne out by the evidence from day one.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Drive on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. I know my mind is like a sieve, as my wife says, but can I just go back to Johnny Ratner, the most enthusiastic travel reporter ever in the history of the world? I don't know who runs the traffic and travel. I'm not against the people that do it usually, but by God, this man is on something. And coming out of the capital, there's I mean, this is exciting. I mean, imagine. I mean, he wasn't a Nepo baby. Do you think he's related to... Do you remember the man that had the Ratner, the jewellery business? Do you remember that story years ago? You lot are really old. It was the most successful jewellery business, and the bloke who ran it, Mr. Ratner, got drunk, and he went on television and they said, what do you think of a jewel? And he said, it's all crap. And he lost like 600 million quid. Maybe he's related, Johnny Ratner, and he's had to make a career in traffic and travel. Well, I would like to respectfully suggest, as I head toward the retirement home, that Johnny Ratner needs to be put front and centre. Come on, Ryan, get it sorted with your big feet. 0344 419 1000. Back with Benedict Spencer, just a tick. Loads of you texting. Couple of questions today. What makes you proud? What doesn't make you proud of Great Britain on the 80th V anniversary day? Jeremy, really? John says, I've been pretty much blanked by all my neighbours since I put a reform sticker in my van windscreen. Good for you, son. I'd move. I don't like any of them. Let's put it into context. So from Roebury, my grandfather was a gunner for the Royal Artillery, stationed at a battery in Shanghai in Singapore. They were ordered to surrender and to destroy the gun battery, taken as a prisoner of war by the Japanese. He was sent to Burma, where he contributed to building the bridge over the infamous river. I know he would be furious looking at this country now. It's a joke and has to change. Thank God for talk. Hello to Tim in Suffolk. Tim says, what makes me proud, Jez, that I and many others served our great country to protect and to serve. What embarrasses me is this current government's policies. Hello to Mark on the Isle of Wight. I reckon Harry's problem started when Meghan initially loved the idea of being a real Hollywood princess. Probably started when he met her. She changed her tune when she realised all the hard work the job entails. Didn't fancy that, the lazy mare, did she? Oh, Liza is in Dorset. I'm proud of our great history and monarchy, this sceptred isle and our patriotic leaders, e.g. Thatcher, Churchill, Disraeli, Nelson. I'm pretty embarrassed and disgusted by the globalist, woke and Marxist idiots running our great country. For example, Blair, Brown and Starmer and Khan. Great show, love it. Finally from... Oh, hello. The reason history of this country isn't taught in schools anymore is that most readers are left-wing Guardianistas who hate and despise everything to go with our past and our history. Do you know what, Nick? I couldn't agree more. I'll get into trouble, but my daughter's at university and she said the lecturer stood up the other day and said, you do know the British... Well, probably didn't sound like that. He said that you do know that the British Army has been responsible for starting most of the wars across the globe. Brilliant. You're right, maybe our education is crap. Hello to Margaret. Margaret! This is in Birmingham. After the fantastic reform results, the people have belief that Nigel will get our country back and hope that he will be our next Prime Minister. And finally, Andy, yes, it should be on the school curriculum about patriotism. Your guest, James, beat me to it. Great show. I was about to call in. You can send your text, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. You can call. Jody's here, but we're back with Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator and generally good guy who, like me, has nothing better to do on a bank holiday Monday. Let's move away from reform and the council plans to ban migrant hotels and woke flags. We've talked about VE Day. I listened to a lot of commentary over the weekend about whether, you know, this is a seismic moment in British politics, whether it's a protest vote. Certainly, I think if you look, they won 677 council seats, reform 10 councils, that MP as well. Is it, in your word, a turning point? Is it a mid-term wobble? Or do you genuinely now, Benedict, see reform as a viable alternative to the main two parties?
Not yet. And I know that lots of talk listeners will probably be very irritated at me for saying that, but I am going to stick to what I've been saying for some time, which is that I've yet to see evidence that Reform is a serious party. And actually, I say that in terms of a lot of the candidates that they put forward at these local elections, and indeed for the mayoral elections as well. I don't, for instance, think that Andrea Jenkins is a particularly serious candidate, and but that's beside the point. What we will see now is finally Reform, because to be fair to them, they've yet to have an opportunity to sort of set themselves up as a party government at any level. They're now going to get that opportunity to do so, and we will see whether or not they can actually perform better at a local level than the major parties have. And what they would say very clearly is, look, all of these parties have had decades of experience, of control, and they have failed at every turn. Maybe it's about time that somebody else got to go. So I'd say it's a good thing that they are going to get an opportunity. And even if they're not very good at running things, which I suspect will probably be the case in a lot of these areas, they will at the very least have the opportunity to shine a light and be honest with the public and say why things don't work very well. And this could be a very good strategy for Farage. If his councillors are rubbish at every term and his local mayors are rubbish at every turn, he'll be able to turn around and say, well, we can't actually change anything until we get to a higher office and we can start passing laws to change the things that affect things at a local level. So that's the thing. Even if they don't do very well at a local council level, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But as I say, we're still 4 years away from the next general election. It's too soon to say that they are the next party of government.
I agree with you, but I don't agree with you. I would say only this. When I talk about have the British people reached a moment, I think you're right. After years and decades of backwards and forwards, up and down, expense scandals, lies, all the things that have happened, maybe to a increasing number of people, Benedict, the unknown, even if the unknown wasn't massively brilliant to start with, maybe it would have to grow into the job. If I was anything to do with reform today, I would do what I have said on this station for 3 years. I would stand in front of the British people and I would say, right, these are the facts. I'm new to this. I'll make mistakes, but all along the way, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you the good. I'm going to tell you the bad. I'm going to tell you the ugly, and I'll be attacked by the media, and I'll be slagged off by all sorts of people, but this is the course that I think we should go. That's what you voted for. Come with me on that journey. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be ideal. I'm sure there will be candidates who aren't perfect and mistakes will be made. God, I mean, we'll talk about Louise Haig in a minute. She was a fraudster. She ended up in the cabinet, for Christ's sake. So I just think that the British people probably have got to a point where they're going, could anything be worse than the poo we're in right now?
To which the answer is, in the words of Mick McCarthy, yes, it can always be worse.
Great.
And I think that this is going to be part of the problem, is that actually the British public's tolerance for an inability to perform in office has completely run out. Labour is finding out in 12 months what it took the Tories 10 years, for the public to finally snap. But if people think then that reform won't be subject to the same quite high standards, I think they will be subject to those same high standards. They'll turn around, like they're doing to Labour, and saying, but you promised that you would be different. And unless you're able to demonstrate that you are aggressively different in a very short space of time, I think people have run out of patience for that sort of thing.
Maybe it's politics in general. Maybe it's politics in general. I don't know. But
politics in general has changed. And I would also just say one last thing on this, which is 4 years is a very long time.
Yeah.
Never rule out the Conservative Party. I know lots of very angry people, myself included, are furious at the Tories, given their performance the last couple of years, but don't rule out the sheer scale of invested interests in the success, or at the very least the survival of that party. It is still there. It is still polling at about 20%. That is pretty good, given that that seems to be the sort of the standard across the board.
Do you want to know what I
doesn't suggest
think?
That the party has yet been wiped.
I think that they have one way of, and it's boring and predictable what I'm going to say to you. For me, there's one person that will be the next leader of the Tory party, and it isn't Robert Jenrick, and it isn't Kemi Badenoch. I believe it will be James Cleverly, and I think they'll go back to that centrist thing, and I think that they will, in 4 years they'll get their business done. But Cleverly, to me, that's what the Tories always do. They always go back to the centre. They will not go to Jenrick. And I actually agree with a lot of what Robert Jenrick says.
I think it's a 50-50 chance, genuine. And I think it is the key moment, whether or not the Conservative Party decides to be bold, or whether it does, in fact, decide to die very slowly and recede. And I think that would be the Cleverly option. If they are too timid now to go for the Jenrick option, which would park the tanks firmly on Farage's lawn, as well as bringing the institutional support that the Conservative Party has to bear on Farage, then I think they have a chance of overcoming him. If they go for Cleverly, what they'll be trying to do is mop up people who are going to the Lib Dems. And there are a lot of those voters. Let's not escape from that. But still, that way does not lead to electoral success. But of course, as you say, 4 years' time, it's a long time.
Well, I'll tell you about electoral success, and this just about sums up what's wrong with the government. There was a woman with purple hair who was basically a convicted fraudster because she nicked a mobile... Well, she lost her mobile phone, or she didn't lose the mobile phone, and she put it... Anyway, she got money out of an insurance company. She managed to apparently tell everybody from when she was elected as a councillor to an MP, and she made it all the way, ladies and gentlemen, to Transport Secretary Louise Haig, who has come out this weekend in the most extraordinary way. A convicted fraudster who was sacked from one of the top cabinet jobs in the country by the Prime Minister for lying. Sir Keir Starmer must tear up Labour's pledge not to raise taxes to see off an existential threat from Nigel Farage. So Louise Haig says he should raise taxes. She attacked the PM over the government's welfare reforms and his decision to means test the winter fuel allowance. She said could allow a serious programme of investment and re-industrialisation that would show the voters the government was fighting on their side. So switched on is this old woman, right? Having been sacked for being a fraudulent liar, she thinks that he should raise taxes, and that's the way to get the British public back on side. Look at her hair. Honestly, if you're watching on screen, it matches the... Dear God, honestly.
I was rather rude about Louise Haig on Twitter earlier today, saying that she has the political instincts of a beached whale, because I think right now raising taxes is quite possibly the last thing that the Labour Party should do. If there was one way to really ensure that everybody really hates you, it would be to take even more of their money, especially with migration continuing to rise and so many more demands on the public purse being taken from that. Look, there is a lot of truth that things like the winter fuel allowance and PIP payments, that is causing a lot of irritation on the doorstep. But in places like Runcorn, there is no getting away from it. immigration is the big topic. And a lot of what you're seeing now is a lot of people on the Labour left saying, well, the only way we're going to deal with this, Keir, is by you raising taxes to support people's benefits and their services. Don't lurch too far to the right. Don't play reform at their own game. And they're saying that even as the voters are literally sat there going, no, guys, it's immigration. That's the thing that we're voting on.
Well, I'm going to stick my neck on the line because I've got to go in a second. You've been amazing. Sure. I actually think in 4 years' time, I've always said immigration will be central, but I believe that what will destroy this government more than anything else is what Blair got involved with last night. I believe that energy will be as important as immigration. I believe that energy cost is Jurgen running the great... I honestly believe that I think the Miliband will be discarded. I think they will row back. I think the British public have worked out that's an absolute financial con, net zero. I really do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're right. I think that is taking a little longer to filter through.
Benedict, don't think me rude. It's a bit like your thing, mate. I really appreciate it. Sorry, the signal's gone a little bit, but we so appreciate it. With us for over half an hour, the excellent, brilliant Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator on Talk Drive, 20 to 6. We're live across the UK. Mike Graham is listening. Bless him. What's he cooking? Mikey texts me. He's probably in the kitchen. It's like the naked chef, Mike Graham. He's probably got the old hat on. He's got the wine out. He's having a nice time. He's enjoying his life. Don't know what you're doing tonight. How did you celebrate VE Day? But more importantly, on the text, 87222, start your message with the word talk. What makes you proud to be British? What makes you embarrassed to be British? I'm trying to think what makes me proud to be British. The monarchy, our armed forces, our heritage, the things that matter. What makes me embarrassed? What, when I'm naked or what? No, I don't know. What makes me embarrassed? An awful lot. Yes, furries. That embarrasses me. 90 minutes to 6.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
Oh, hello, welcome back, 17 minutes to 6. It's Kev on. Oh, he's on tonight, lovely. Can I just say, what's the name of Kev O'Sullivan's producer who just bought that biscuit in? Fariza, which is an amazing name. Fariza has bought me a French biscuit. I've never been given a French biscuit. I was in the past given a French letter. But thank you, Fariza, for your French biscuit. Very nice to have received it. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's go to Belfast. Adam, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hello, Jezza. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to Talk on VE Day. Something to get the younger generation's teeth into. Something we should be proud of, right?
Well, I might bring the mood down a little bit. I was lucky enough, Jezza, to know a veteran of World War II, my grandfather.
Yep.
Very, very proud of him and all those boys that went and done what they done. But that's where the the happiness ends, really. That, you know, I got to know that man. I think we've been betrayed by government since then, and I just hate the way this country's turned out. And if they could see it now, I would bet my life on it they wouldn't have bothered going. I really do believe that. Knowing my granddad, like I said...
Do you know something? I not only agree with you, but I'm going to say something you might disagree with, but that's what debate is about. Oh, they would have gone anyway, because they were born with the belief of duty and doing the right thing. And at that moment in their lives, at that moment in our history, they believed that was the right thing. Of course, hindsight's a great thing, and I say the same about my old man, but they were so fearless and so brave and so... They just made sacrifices that this generation don't even know.
I agree, Jezza, but what I mean is if you was to bring them back and show them the towns and cities where their great-great-grandchildren are being raped by rape gangs, Muslim rape gangs, they would be absolutely raging. And I think, actually, we'd get our butts kicked by them, to be honest with you, if they could come back and see this. They wouldn't have it at all. They would not have that. And it really is, you know, I'm heartbroken, really, about this country. I served this country. I've got a son who's now wanting to go and join the army, and I'm begging him. I've begged him not to go.
Why?
I don't want him to join the army.
Why?
Well, why? Because I served this country. I served in Northern Ireland, Jezza. And the government now are putting, you know, they're going to put our boys on trial. Do you know what I mean? There was a Marine commander, I don't know if you remember, from Afghanistan who killed the enemy combatant on the battlefield who ended up doing years in jail. You want my son to go and do that for this country? I don't think so. I've spilled a little bit of blood for this country. I don't want my son to do it. I know my granddad did. And still what? This is the problem we've got now. White working class people will be expected to go and fight a war. But I tell you what, I would beg them not to go because it's not worth it. The politicians of this country have betrayed us over and over again.
Couldn't agree
and
more.
That's what sickens me to the pit of my stomach.
I will say one thing, Miel, son. Thank you for what you did. And I mean that, genuinely. I agree. Don't get me wrong. I think the world's changed. I mean, today, just coming into London, you know, I'm 60. I tell everybody that. I'm proud of what they did. I'm proud of what this country was. But you're right. What it is and what it's become, the apology of a country that we've become, our priorities are wrong. We don't seem to care, in my mind, about the right things. Really good to have you on. Adam in Belfast. Thank you quickly to Betty in London. Oh, Betty. Hello, Betty.
Hello, Jeremy.
Do you not want to hear my Frank Spencer impression?
No, thank you, no.
Brilliant.
I've heard it once before when I rang in.
OK, so that was crap. I'll just shut up then. You crack on.
Yeah. No, I went to a memorial service this morning for firefighters that lost their lives during the Blitz in Bromley.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important. While I have the greatest respect for the armed forces, we mustn't forget the civilian services.
Quite right, too. Absolutely. Okay. And in fact, Betty, the point that you make is such a good one because... there were plenty of people who didn't leave this country to fight abroad. There were auxiliary, there were nurses, and there were all sorts of people. There were people helping out in hospitals when the bombs came. All sorts. It was, you know. I was just thinking about what you were just saying. It was a national effort, wasn't it?
It was. It was. And I'd just like to say I have got a huge Union Jack hanging in my living room window.
Good girl.
Which will be there for the next 4 days.
You sure you don't want to hear my Frank Spencer impression?
Go on then.
Oh, Betty. It's crap, isn't it? Where are you calling from?
London.
How proud are you of today?
I am over the moon. I am so proud. And what made this memorial service so special was that there was a huge, well, not huge, but a large turnout of young London Fire Brigade cadets.
Good.
Young men and women that are hoping to go into the fire service. And that kind of gave me heart.
Good girl. Really good to have you on. Thank you so much indeed. Betty, excellent call. Jez, my wife's dad makes me proud of this country. He lied about his age to sign up for the Second World War and parachuted into Arnhem and thankfully came home. I wonder if this generation would be up for that. Rob Shaw and Lynn in Chelmsford. Jez, my grandparents were farmers and they took in a German prisoner of war in World War II who helped them on the farm. To this day, we are in contact with his family. It was their contribution. I only started watching Talk in the last year. I agree with all you say, but nothing is being done. This country cannot take another 3 years under this government. What can we do? Well, it's 4 years and we'll keep the fight going. Caroline, my dad was in the Second World War and I am proudly flying his Union Jack on his flagpole in my garden today. What makes me proud is that we have before and can be again Great Britain. What embarrasses me is that we currently have a waxwork Prime Minister who needed speech training but still can't string a bleeding sentence together. I am proud of my English, Sue Van Seddon says, I am proud of my English heritage and culture. I am embarrassed and ashamed by this pox... Oh, I think I might have added poxy there. Government, there we go. 10 to 6, you'll be very excited to know that Ian Danter, a sports broadcaster from Talk, whose career I created many years ago in Birmingham, is next on Talk Drive.
Firstly, you're absolutely...
What was that, Mike? What was that?
Oh, my God. Well,
does this man have anyone protecting him in the media space? I mean, where's your publicist that steps in and says, we promised you 10 minutes, it's been 30?
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on when it comes to the contradictions, when it came to the oversharing.
Yeah.
This is the third time the man has told us that his father doesn't take his calls anymore, by the way. Don't forget, in the Netflix series, Meghan actually says Harry lost his dad.
Yeah.
And it's gone from being a shock every time it happens to almost becoming a new normal, which we can't allow to happen. But you say the BBC aren't helping. It's worse than that. The BBC has contributed massively to the rise in anti-Semitism in this country, and to the precarious position in which the Jewish community in this country now finds itself. For a lot of people who aren't that close to this issue, it might sound like an astonishing thing to say, but, you know, it's borne out.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 6 o'clock. This is JK. Mike Graham is such a legend. He's here every single morning. It's the best breakfast show in the land. He's my best bet. Look at this, right? He sent me a picture of his dinner. I'm going to cough now, just the thought of it. Chicken Milanese with a nice glass of red. That's so classy, this man. It's a lovely picture. Ryan goes, what's chicken mayonnaise? Yeah, total idiot. Chicken Milanese to the main man. Back tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock on breakfast. Right now, push the button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
All right, Ian Danter, how are you, son?
Not three bad, Jez. How are you, mate?
What's that picture of in the background? Bloody hell, what's that? Is that Alice Cooper?
You know exactly who it is. You're just feigning ignorance.
Is that us when we worked on BRMB?
Correct. Second time I'm asking. Well
Ian
done.
did a drive show on BRMB called the Barmy Brummies. I did. What did I do? Late nights. I was talking sex, wasn't I?
Jez's Confessions, it became known as.
Yes, it did. Yeah, live across the UK. Dance. I just Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't know why there's so many column inches. Has chosen after 300 years at Liverpool to go to Real Madrid. Good luck to him. They were spineless, by the way, yesterday against Chelsea. Liverpool, spineless.
They were. I weren't expecting to be as lacklustre as they were, because they didn't make that many changes. What was it, 4 or 5?
I'd have been really angry, by the way, if I was Newcastle or Villa. I thought they didn't even look like they were at the races. Maybe that's the downside of winning the championship.
Well, the title's won. I mean, we can talk about integrity till the cows come home, but, you know, those Liverpool players have put in so much effort, and no, there weren't many people tipping them for the title at the start of the season.
That's true.
So if they've dropped off a couple of percent, that's all you need, Jez, for another Premier League team to turn you over. You don't need to drop off 10 or 15% nowadays. Sometimes it's only 3 or 4% below your usual standards. And Chelsea played well. But Trent, yeah, he's been there nearly 10 years.
Good luck to him.
Yeah, very good luck to him. There's a lot of hand-wringing going on about him leaving, and I don't really understand it.
He's given 16 years, Real Madrid, live abroad, try a new thing. Best of luck to him. Hope he is a huge success. That's all I'd say.
What interests me is where they play him. Obviously, Ancelotti may be on borrowed time at Real Madrid. So whoever the new coach is,
Jurgen Klopp.
Do you see Trent as? Could be Klopp, could be Xabi Alonso. Does he see him as a right back, or does he see him as a midfielder? That would be the first intriguing thing for me.
Here's the thing about the Premier League. Obviously, West Ham total. Spurs. I mean, Dave Levine and I always have a bet Spurs thing, and he puts SHITE plus that equals SH. I mean, dreadful. Spurs, West Ham, Manchester United. Imagine if one of those three teams that came up had gone on a run. I mean, that's how bad West Ham, Spurs and Manchester United have been. Manchester United losing 4-3 at Brentford. West Ham couldn't even beat the 8th team that Spurs put out. Appalling seasons by those three teams, got to be said.
Do you know what I think this is a symptom of, Jessa? I think because you look at the 20 teams in the Premier League, more and more of them have very good budgets and are able to spend wisely on good talent from this country and around the continent and indeed around the world. That's made teams like Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham stronger.
Yeah.
And that coupled with a bit of, I don't know, complacency on the part of the teams, you know, like yours and Spurs and Manchester United have just led to this situation where, whoa, you know, Manchester United, look, they've been relegated in my lifetime, but a very long time ago. Yeah, there was genuine concern at one point. My God, how hard they've got to work in the summer, and Spurs and West Ham, because I don't think Graham Potter's won the West Ham fans over at all yet.
And he'll go. Postecoglou will go.
Yeah, and then there's the Amorim thing at Manchester United, who the Manchester United fans seem to be waving through. They're happy to wave him through at the moment. I think they want to see what he does with the summer transfer window.
Let me tell you, 10 games in, if Manchester United are still struggling, the pressure will start on him. Well done, by the way. I should congratulate Birmingham City on the most extraordinary performance in League One. Bought the title, went up with 5,000 points. Very quickly, how will you fare in the Championship?
Very well, I believe. A lot of those players were bought specifically for, you know, to be sold the idea of being in the Championship within a season, which has happened. So there will be a few additions, I assume. But I think top half is definitely within Birmingham's grasp next season. And if the right players come in, Jez, we've seen it just recently with Ipswich Town, and we've seen it with Southampton and Watford and Norwich. Teams can go through the leagues. Unfortunately, like Luton Town have just gone the same way.
You see, Ryan has put this at the bottom of his thing because he is a die-hard Watford fan and had to be told by his wife on Saturday to calm down. So excited was he that Luton have suffered, it's written in big letters here, back-to-back relegations to League One. They're rubbish.
Yes, although I imagine Ryan isn't cracking open the champagne live on air like Gabi Agbonlahor did on TalkSport when Birmingham got relegated this time last season. And I'm waiting to gain my revenge on Mr. Agbonlahor.
I saw him the other day on a train.
That's a lovely story, Jez.
I walked out of first class to go to the toilet, and there he was, sat in standard class outside the bog.
I wouldn't open with it when you're doing after dinner, but it might be, you know, worth sticking in the set.
After dinner. Anyway, listen, very good to have you on. The picture, if you are watching, is actually... Who is in that picture I can't see from here?
That's Kiss. You know it's Kiss, the hottest band in the world, as was.
You haven't changed, have you? And actually, here's one thing. I know the hair's now white, but you do look... How old are you now? Serious question.
Old enough to know better.
How old
56.
are you? You look great, boy. It's good to have you on, and well done to Birmingham, and thank you so much indeed for daring to work on a bank holiday Monday. Bit like me, just you get that age where if they want you on a bank holiday Monday, you got to do it. By the way, live tonight on talkSPORT, should have said Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest behind the 8 ball now because Man City won Chelsea. Will be an important victory for them tonight if they can get it. But Palace, of course, heading to the FA Cup final. Now, the big question is, will be they taking the foot off the gas because they'll be protecting themselves. That's always the equation, isn't it, at this time of the season? Almost 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Talk is on. Mike Graham's eating chicken Milanese. Ryan's got big new shoes. And we are ready to take your calls on 0344 499 1000. Your text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. News at 6 is next.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back, just gone 6 o'clock. It's the final hour of Talk Drive ahead of Kev O'Sullivan, it says here, who's the best broadcaster in the building. He's on at 7 o'clock, followed by Petri Hoskins. She's a dish. It's predictable, but there you go. If you'd like to be part of this vain attempt at a programme in the next 58 minutes, 0344 499 1000. Jodie taking your calls. You can text me 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I set this question on VE Day, our 80th anniversary, something to be proud of, something that we should ram down the throats of these younger entitled generations. We should teach it in schools. That's what I think. What makes you proud to be British? And what makes you bloody well embarrassed right now to be British? Talk, something you'll never experience, the feeling of 50, 60, 70 Lancaster bombers flying overhead. The ground shook, the hair stood up at the back of your neck. It was incredible. Jez, I'm proud of our Christian heritage, ashamed how we treat our veterans. Couldn't agree more. Christina, proud now to be British. Now Reform UK are on the march. Embarrassed to be Keir Starmer as Prime Minister with his half-wit front bench and that idiot who runs London. Great show, very kind of you. Paul's in Ellesmere Port, which is brave. That crybaby Harry is the 5th generation of royals. He's the biggest baby ever. He's so privileged and so lucky to have a privileged life. We hate... Well, good. Derek, I hope that's right. What I am proud of being British and our culture, values and history, what I'm not proud of is the way our parliament turned out, how they have betrayed this country and its people. And Anne Sewell says, Jeremy, that man from Belfast just said everything I feel as a 75-year-old grandmother. This country is sadly spiralling out of control. Here's a man who never spirals out of control. He is smoother than a cashmere codpiece, ladies and gentlemen. Former number 10 advisor, Timothy Montgomery. Hello, Timmy.
Hello. You never forget anything, do you? I once made the mistake of telling you that I don't like to be called Timmy, and you've called me Timmy ever since.
I am like an elephant, but not the long trunk. I don't forget much. Although, to be honest, I have started to, which is probably my age.
My shoes are size 12, by the way.
Oh, you have been 12?
Yeah, and I tell you one thing.
Big boy Timmy is all we're going to say now. I mean, honestly, I'm only size 9.
When I was younger, I really found it difficult to get shoes. So I wonder whether our feet are actually growing bigger. We have lots of Ryans.
Ryan has got size... I mean, he...
No, but generally now I go in and I ask for a size 12 and they have it. That used to be the exception, not the norm.
Ryan, where'd you get your shoes? Giacomo or something? Is that where you get sort of... I mean... No, we're not saying...
What did he say?
Oh, Nike are quite good. Send me some more trainers. Oh, yeah, all right, then Nike are great. Adidas. Oh, my God, Montgomery's just lifted his leg. He's got Nikes on. So we'd like to congratulate... Very trendy. So
other
size 12
are
for Tim Montgomery and size 14 for Ryan. And any other companies that are interested, thank you very much indeed.
You're quite a small boy, aren't you, number 9?
I beg your pardon?
You're quite a small boy, aren't you, number 9?
You know what they say.
Well, that's why I said
it's not what you've got, it's what you do with it. Let's talk about the 80th anniversary commemorations for VE Day today. Interestingly, on the show, so many people saying the same thing, which is this great country, I know you're a patriot like me, built on a lot of things that you can't really bottle, humility, decency, always doing the right thing, always looking out for other people. Do you agree, Tim, or disagree with me that I thought last week the reform election was a sort of ceiling moment, because I think the British people, and I should tread really carefully here, will always be the same as we've been, but I think people are going, I'm really sorry, but I haven't broken the law, I've paid my taxes, I bring my kids up, and I feel like I'm an 8th-class citizen to people coming into this country, or the work shy, or the socially unacceptable. I feel like I do everything right, and I'm being screwed over. And it's time my voice was heard. Would that be a truthful comment?
I'll tell you something that really upset me last week, but I wasn't as upset as the mother who told me this. Her 8-year-old son came back from school, and while they were having, a cup of tea or whatever she made for him when he comes home, he said, Mummy, I don't like being white. I don't want to be white. Why am I white? And she doesn't quite understand where it came from. Did it come from the playground, from the teachers she's trying to establish, or maybe something accumulated? But that is a lot of the teaching influences, artistic influences, cultural influences. There's something that has changed. They seem to have knocked Britain all the time.
Do you know why that really annoys me, that story?
Yeah.
Can I just... And people will go, I can't believe what he's saying.
Yeah.
I could not give a fat rat's backside the colour of your skin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do not care where you come from.
Yeah.
I genuinely, hand on heart.
Yeah.
What I find completely unacceptable now is that what I was trying to say, have always been perceived to be the right place. If you're going to come to the right place, could you please explain to me why so many migrants spend their entire time trashing almost everything that we believe in, our history? The younger generation are the same. Churchill
Recent
was
migrants.
a racist.
Didn't you to have migrants in previous decades?
Precisely. I've told
they
the story
came here
on the
because
show.
they loved us and wanted to be like us.
I told it. You wouldn't.
That's not true of modern migrants.
The guy that picks me up in the evening came from Bangladesh, and he is more. I would think he's more of a patriot than you and I. So yes, you're right. But
the zeal of a convert almost.
What I'm trying to say is I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about the colour of your skin. I don't care where you come from. What I don't like is that, under the guise of us trying to do the right thing the whole time, I fear it's not just to say we are shortchanging people who have been here all their lives, who have lived their lives correctly and feel like second-class citizens. Why is that wrong to say that?
Of course it isn't, and I'm sorry, I certainly wasn't my impression to say that. It was about what I was trying to say was there is a generation there who were not taught the same as we were taught.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who weren't subject to the same influences. And a lot of it is related to race, there's this white guilt. But it's much more about Western civilization. You know, there was that poll not so long ago where younger people were asked, would you fight for your country? It's one of the most shocking findings, about half wouldn't. And that's because, for example, they're told the story about Britain's evil part in slavery.
Yep.
But then it stops.
Yep.
They aren't then told that the Royal Navy went round the world spending more as a percentage of our country's income then than we did on World War II. Think about that. Getting rid of those slave ports. We get lost. Every nation gets
We were the nation.
wrong.
We were the nation that made mistakes but cleared the mess up
Exactly.
of slavery.
Everyone makes mistakes.
And that never.
Some don't put them right.
That never gets acknowledged. I tell you one thing I wanted to pick up on, which you're absolutely spot on about, and I think it was, I don't know who it was earlier. Somebody said it. Maybe James Price. You know, the heritage, the values that got us to where we are. Yes, not perfect, but neither are you lot. Right, I would love to have that taught in schools. I think it's, I mean, I told the story earlier about my daughter at university. I don't want to embarrass her, but the lecturer stood up and said, you know, the British Army have been responsible for most conflicts in the world. Listen, you left-wing guardian. I mean, I'd be no good. I can't go in the building. Wouldn't it be interesting if this younger generation were in some way allowed to understand the sacrifices that people made, the values that these people adhered to, the people who gave their lives up, we don't hear about anymore. We hear about hurty words and can I be a furry, and I'm sorry, I'm going to sit down in the middle of the road and protest about the latest fad because I don't want to go to work. I don't know. I think the very fabric of what we were is in danger. Why I think reforms... listen, you're a member of Reform. I don't know if Reform will continue to grow, whether it will be the next government, whether I don't know about that, but what I know is that people are grabbing hold of the things. I mean, what about Pia Azir Youssef today saying, Pia, keep saying Pia, you know, Reform UK councils will only be allowed to fly the Union flag and the St George's Cross. Brilliant. And out come Labour going, what about the Ukrainian flag? What about local council flags? Oh, sod off. The point we're making is you should be proud to be able to be British. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't.
Well, look, I'm afraid some people look at the Union flag and they see colonialism. Now, where have they got that idea from, that that's all we represent as a country?
So always the negatives, right?
Always the negative. And we have to face up to our negatives. But the fact is that we are a very self-reflective country. We do examine our history. That's a good thing. But it's sort of fallen over from good self-reflection to sort of extraordinary guilt.
I'm so with you, Tim.
You know, we just... we've come to almost...
So we've become apologists, haven't we? We've got to the point where this is... you're so right, it's great. It's taken me 2.5 hours and you've put it straight in line, which is... We've obviously made mistakes, but we've also done some great things. But what winds me up nowadays is that this generation and so many only focus on the mistakes. Today, I mean, that was tyranny at its worst, and men and women lost their lives and fought and made huge sacrifices. And a lot of the people nowadays who go, well, I always feel, I shout at the television, sod off to a different country then. No respect. Go somewhere else then, because you patently do not like the United Kingdom.
The trouble is they don't, though, do they?
No,
for all of their words, they stay here. You know, Britain is one of the countries which still lots of people want to come here.
Why is that? Because we're as soft as anything.
Well, we're a soft touch, but you know, we're also a free country. We are there for people when they're really down. You know, and perhaps we're not as generous to the people already here as some of the people who arrived recently.
But
the idea is that we are still a fair country.
But are we fair to our own people?
Not enough. No, not at all. But there's still enough there to make us special. But I would absolutely say we're in decline. Western Europe's in decline. The Western world's in decline. Mainly because we don't regard ourselves as special anymore.
Yeah.
You know, 50 years ago, those people who fought in that war, the speeches of Churchill, he didn't just say he was defending Britain, he said he was defending Western civilization, the best thing that civilization had ever...
And he's a racist if you listen to the younger generation.
Yeah. You know, we'll all be condemned, I'm sure, in 50 or 100 years for eating meat. You know, the values of generations change, but at the time, Britain stood alone in the world, defending not just ourselves but civilization. And everybody in Britain knew that then.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a debate. How have we gone so far? And that's how we could pay a real tribute to the veterans, is not a sort of unthinking patriotism where people can't make criticisms, but we do, I think, need to remind. I don't like sort of American thing of having an oath of allegiance in the classroom. We think we need to go that far.
No, but in America, somebody pointed out earlier, every house, to a T, will have an American flag. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, they swear allegiance and they're proud of their country.
Yeah.
I've always said it. The Welsh are proud,
Yeah.
the Scottish are proud, the Irish are proud. We're not allowed to be, because some numpty will say the far right. I have no time for the far right, but I have time for the sorts of people that listen to this station and say, our grandparents or our parents fought in the war. We were instilled in values that we believe in. We've been generous, we've been kind, but right now we're struggling, and right now we feel like people are taking it out of us. And so we believe that it's time we stood and did what we had to do. I want to move it on.
Yep.
You were involved in something last week. I know you won't mind talking about this.
No. I've talked about little else all weekend.
I mean, extraordinary situation. You were on the BBC. Strange, you've never been invited.
Well, they don't call me Timmy, Jeremy. They're actually quite polite. So I might go back on their
Just bear
programme.
in mind that when you go on the BBC, I'm paying your wages on that as well as this, all right?
Even Lucy Powell didn't call me Timmy.
So Lucy Powell is... What's her job?
She's leader of the House, and of course that's a job where she's supposed to bring people together in Parliament.
So she sat with you on a BBC panel, and it came round to the subject of the rape gang survivors, and she just explain to people what she said to you.
Well, the context actually was Reform councils are trying to get rid of all this diversity work in diversity officers, etc., in new councils, and she said it was all peripheral, didn't matter, and I was trying to make the point. Tell that to the people who are victim of the rape gangs, which we call them. They're rape gangs, not grooming gangs.
Quite right.
And I said that is just an extreme manifestation of people who, perhaps for good reason, worried about racial cohesion, were so worried about that one issue that they didn't protect children. And I said, what I was trying to say was that...
And the police admitted that it took them that long because they were worried about what that would do.
Yeah. And I said that's extreme. What I did get a chance to say because she spoke over me, but what I was trying to say was that if there's an ethos inside an organisation, which it is in the public sector, but race is the big thing, it's not the cost of a few diversity officers that matters, it's that all services are affected and perhaps distorted. But no, how she could say what she said...
What did, for people who don't know...
So she basically said, oh, Tim's got the dog whistle out, he's playing politics, and they learned nothing.
Did you know the minute she said it, she'd put her foot in it?
To be honest, I didn't, because actually, the true thing is, I thought I was basically being accused of a racist. And I was mainly at that time worried about defending myself, because it is a charge that, if you sticks to you, is dangerous. It was only sort of, you always after a conversation like that have the lines you wish you could have delivered, but actually maybe it was best that I didn't interrupt and come back with my one-liner, because she carried on digging herself deeper into...
Can I tell you what I
grave.
found really interesting from the aftermath of this story? And you read this on the train on the way up today. If you watched Trevor Phillips yesterday on Sky, he had Wes Streeting. Now, I had a really interesting chat with Matthew Torbett last week.
No, Matthew Torbett's a great guy. Yeah.
I think he's amazing, and he's the only lefty I allow in here. And he literally
I
sat
could give you a
in
few
that
others,
chair.
actually.
No, he's my man. But he sat in that chair and he said, which I thought was really interesting, he believes that Blair's intervention will have been known about from Starmer about net zero, because Ed Miliband will be toast by the summer. He believes that Rachel Reeves will also be toast within 12 months, despite what's been said. And he said there is a massive swell of opinion within the Labour Party that Wes Streeting will lead the Labour Party into the next election. Sort of fascinating. On the back of what happened to you with Lucy Powell, Wes Streeting on Trevor Phillips went, no, she will be remaining in her job for the moment. And I thought, sorry, so how near decision-making and that sort of thing is going on? Lucy Powell, yeah, I mean, it was appalling, really, and showed very little understanding. I mean, listen, I remember doing my first ever television thing with a then Conservative minister, and I won't name them. I literally went. They were the MP for Putney, and they had a
Chelsea shirt,
and they had a file. And listen, it was the first time I'd ever was a panel at some party conference, and I genuinely sound awful, but I came away from it thinking, if that wasn't written down, you're a Secretary of State. It's not great. You haven't really got an awful lot to say. No sympathy for Lucy Powell. The Labour Party is, I mean, to say no to an independent national inquiry into those rape gang situations, just out of respect to those survivors, is beyond me. I have no. I mean, they announced it, didn't they? 45 minutes before Parliament closed, just before Easter. I think it's a real problem for them.
And there are 50 towns. You know, think about 50 towns where we know that this happened in.
And also, this is
and
not.
They promised local inquiries,
yes,
and they haven't happened.
And
so
the reason that
the
reason that the sceptics think that Labour will not look into this, and people don't like this in Rotherham, it was British Pakistani men. This is not a racist. This is a factual comment. There are men, white and black and brown men, who rape women across the world. But the police in Rotherham said, and I quote, "We were worried about racial tension, which is why it took us 8 years." I don't care, as I said 20 minutes ago, the colour of your skin. If you rape a child, the full force of the law should be brought down on you. There are people in politics who will say that the Labour Party, if you look at Ashworth in Leicester, lost his seat to an independent candidate who wanted to talk only about Gaza, that there is a great fear amongst the Labour High Command that the Muslim vote would be affected, and thus their success in the future, if these inquiries were happening. That's not a judgment on the Muslim faith in any which way. That is what everybody is talking about. So for me, it's an interesting thing, because...
By the way, just a matter of coincidence, do you know that Lucy Powell's seat has quite a large Muslim component?
Well, there you go.
I'm sure it's a coincidence.
I tell you what's really interesting about Labour at this moment in time, and I know we're only a year in, and we've talked a lot about the problems they've had and how they've had to deal with certain things. Did you see Louise Haigh today? The convicted fraudster, ex-Transport Secretary.
I think there's a competition out there for worst idea. They're not telling us. So, yeah, higher taxes from Louise Haigh. Lucy Powell doesn't want us to talk about grooming gangs because it's racist. And I was on a panel the other day with a veteran Labour commentator, Polly Toynbee, and her idea is she thinks that people want electoral reform and that should be the priority. And she said that Starmer should declare that he was elected illegitimately and do constitutional reform. I think she should be appointed as a Downing Street advisor already. I don't know. The thing is, I'm joking, but I think a lot of these people live in bubbles, and they think what they say is really that will go down well when they next see their friends, but they're completely out of touch.
I think that we swing between politicians who have absolutely no conviction and no guttural feeling for what the electorate want, who are based entirely on focus groups, and so they look like robots. You got them, they don't say anything, they can't respond, and then these others who are blatantly thick as anything and just come out with stuff that you'd go, listen, I've done this for 25 years, I've made many mistakes, but there are things that you don't talk about. Lucy Powell, that is ludicrous. Louise Haigh, that is ludicrous. But this is a convicted fraudster who made it to Secretary of State for Transport. I would say that should inspire anybody to believe that they can achieve anything. Very, very quickly before we let you go. Was last Thursday the beginning of the end of two-party politics?
Wow.
Are Reform now a serious political party?
Yeah, but I think our work has now just begun. It was brilliant, and I think we expected to do a little bit better in Runcorn, to be honest.
Right.
That was closer than we thought. And so I thought it was going to be a slightly disappointing relative to expectations this evening. But the council results were spectacular and genuinely well beyond what we expected. But now, of course, we have to prove that we are good at governing, and some things will go bad. But this country, as we began with, is in trouble. If Reform have an opportunity at the next election, it will be because, first of all, the Tories failed for 14 years, and then Labour will have failed. And the people will rightly, having seen the wheels fall off two parties, they're not just going to vote for Reform and hope that we're going to be good enough. We have to have robust policy. But we've got 4 years to...
But how they perform in these councils is also going to be important, because there is suddenly going to be meat on the bone. How do you run a council? How do you make those decisions? How do you deal with criticism from central government,
Absolutely.
right?
So great that we've got councils. I just need to work now.
It is always a pleasure, Timmy.
This will be my last appearance on your show.
Why?
Because you keep calling me Timmy.
Timmy Montgomery, former Number 10 advisor. Timmy Montgomery, thank you very much indeed. Timmy Montgomery will be back very soon on Jeremy Carl's Drive. It's 6:24. If you'd like to be part of the show that Timmy was just on, 0344 499 1000. He's a legend, Mr. Montgomery. We love him. He'll be back very soon. We're back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Common sense and free speech. It's Talk at 6:26. Bank holiday Monday evening. JK until 7. Kev O'Sullivan is here from 7 o'clock. Keep your calls coming if you want to be part of the debate. 0344 499 1000. We're talking about the 80th VE Day celebrations. The Mile was absolutely rammed earlier. Fantastic. The flyover, the royal family doing their stuff. You might want to talk about that also today. Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman, has said, I love this, Reform UK councils will only be allowed to fly the Union flag and the St George's Cross, a sign of patriotism. We all know that's upset certain people. The Labour Party have come out and said, what about the Ukraine flag? We're not disrespecting anybody's flag. Let's make that point. It's just, we could be proud of ours, couldn't we? Or is that wrong? Farage's council's also planning to end migrant hotels. Hurrah! I'd like to come to England. Why is that? Why don't you say? Oh, because there's bombs. Well, there aren't in France, are there? There's a tent. We come here, we'll get a hotel and a mobile phone. 0344 499 1000. We'll go to Bridgend, which is, having been to Bridgend, very brave. Ian, good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Talk Drive.
Hello, Jeremy. How are you, all right?
I went to Bridgend once, is it? I love... Whose coat is that at in the middle of the dance floor?
In that jacket over there, yeah.
In that jacket over there. Yeah. Lovely to have you on, my friend. You've lived in a Labour-controlled country for 25 years and you've survived, just
about. It's getting harder and harder, but no, the reason I rang was about the good points and the bad points, how we feel today being Britons. The good point is the pride at how we stood alone against Nazi Germany and fascist Italy in 1940. And just as an indication of how dark that hour was, my wife was telling me today about a story of her grandmother. She always made sure there was a penny on top of the gas meter just in case the Nazis invaded you, rather than anything bad happening to the children.
It is
1940, and we stood alone. The thing that I'm ashamed of is the way that, for political reasons, we are not allowed to acknowledge the tremendous sacrifice of the millions of lives that Russia gave during the Second World War, just because of political reasons today.
I agree with that, and I just, for me, and I'd love your take on the other point that was raised, which is about, do you think that, look, we live in a different world now, so any form of, it seems, patriotism or heritage or a talk about values or the talk about the stuff that matters, certainly to my generation, is considered, you know, well, that's indoctrination, and you're saying you agree with colonialism, and I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that men and women laid down their lives to give the people of this country what they've got today, and I think we're in severe danger of screwing it up. What I would like to see, I've said it repeatedly, is wouldn't it be great in schools, which have definitely gone to the left, wouldn't it be good if, in fact, they were taught, the kids, they get taught about everything, how to be a furry, how to share toilets. Why don't we teach them actually about Great Britain and our heritage? Because here's the thing I haven't asked anybody today. If this country is such a pain in the backside and everything is so wrong with it, why do so many people want to come to it the whole time then?
Yeah, exactly. And I hope that today our wonderful Prime Minister has dusted off that bust of Winston Churchill and put it back.
But he won't have done, and he won't have done.
We took it all down today.
Yeah, but hold on a second. Today he was shaking hands with those people, those pensioners, those veterans. This is the very people who he voted to take away a heating allowance from, the hypocritical git.
Indeed, he's a hypocritical lizard, isn't he? But there we are, there's a few of them up there. But
well, listen, it's lovely having you on, is it?
Yes. It's nice talking to you, Debbie. All the best.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Let's head to Essex, which was as equally brave as going to Bridgend. John is a new caller. John, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Whereabouts in Essex, Treacle?
Walking on an A's.
What?
Walking on an A's.
Oh, that's hard. That's up, Mark. You get out of the bath to have a wee there, don't you?
Mate, honestly, they've just invented electricity down here. But anyway, get to my point. Many years ago, I used to work in the East End for the London Borough Tower Hamlets. And I used to be a coach driver. I used to pick up the kids from the East End, take them to school to a special needs school in the East End. And it was when England were playing in the Euro 96. And I wanted to put the flag up and Beckham and all this and the other. And do you know what I had to do? I had to ask the head teacher permission to do so because it'd be offensive if I didn't do. That's my first point. The second point is my old man was an immigrant. My old man come from Spain, yeah? And he came over in the right way. He followed the procedures, this, that and the other. And he got called a foreigner, this, that and the other. But I can't be more proud to be British than give him the opportunity to raise up his 4 kids, give him a good livelihood, yeah? Enjoy the benefits that this country's given him. And then I've had to ask permission from an head teacher to put up a flag in my own country.
I'm so pleased you rang. The thing is, this whole flag. No, it doesn't make sense. And this whole flag debate, which started today with Zia Youssef saying, just to repeat for people tuning in, Reform UK councils will only be allowed to fly the Union flag of the St George's Cross. Maybe only allowed. Is the language is wrong because now everybody's jumping up and down saying, what about the Ukrainian flag? Yes, we must.
No, hang on, Jenny. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Sorry. We've been well, whatever the word is, was for so long that we couldn't even fly our own flag.
I'm with you. You've jumped in too soon. What I'm saying is, I think that I would have said if I was Zia Youssef, we should not be embarrassed and not proud to fly our own flag. When people tell me the St George's Cross has been grabbed by the far right, that's an excuse because there are plentiful lefty wet liberals who go, oh, it's a sign of the past. Well, there's a lot about the past that were mistakes, but there was also a lot about the past that was bloody good. That's what gets me.
The majority of the past was better than the worst, yeah? Let's look at the Ottoman Empire when they took us all for slaves and this, that and the other. But let me tell you something else quickly, right? The old man, like I said, he was a foreigner, yeah? He was more than happy to put the flag up to provide him with a good living for this country, yeah? Yeah, and he wasn't ashamed.
No.
Yeah? People used to say to my old man, How comes a foreigner like you's got a lovely house? He said, because I get off my arse and work for it.
Yep.
That's the reason.
And
why.
by the way, your father is an example of how immigration works perfectly. I've told the story about the guy that sometimes picks me up. The guy's been here 40 years. This country has done an awful lot of good, and many people, here you are, this is going to make people laugh, many people who have come to this country in the past have done great things and provided. What can't be acceptable is, I'm leaving a war-torn country. Well, you're not, are you? Leaving France. And if you were leaving a war-torn country, you bring your wife and kids with you. I'm going to come to this country and I'm going to disappear and I'm coming on my own and I'm dropping my passport in the sea. But I am coming here because I do know that I'll be treated better than in any other country. If you take that to one side, even if I've got a problem with that, my bigger problem is simple. Right, John? What about the people in this country who are being treated about 8th in the bleeding queue because we're wiping the backside of everybody and anybody? And the other thing is, which goes completely in with your father, you said it at the beginning of the call. He would say, we need to respect a country that's given us this opportunity. If these people want to come to this country and make good and provide and pay tax, I am absolutely up for that. But why do they come to this country and slag it off and try and change it the whole time? That's what I want to know, because I don't see any of that. All I see is people criticising the United Kingdom. Where were, as somebody said earlier in the day, do you think any of those illegal migrants were out celebrating VE Day today, giving them the country that they've managed to come and ponce off?
No, definitely not. I'll tell you what, the only time they get up... Let me tell you something, look, Jeremy, just quickly. I phoned up Tower Hamlets Council 2 years ago because when I was working there, we couldn't even put Christmas decorations up because it wasn't... they said we didn't have the money to do so. But I phoned them up and asked them about why is there all Palestinian flags up in the East End of London? And they say people have got a right to protest. People have got a right to protest. It's all right. We live in a woke society. Let me tell you something. I voted reform. I will always vote reform. And I'll make sure that Richard Tate, Nigel Farage, talkTV is a breath of fresh air. Let me tell you.
You're a good man. Just one thing. It's Richard Tice, not Richard Tate. It might upset him a little bit. We love having you on. You're a top man. New caller John in Essex. Let's go to Hampshire. Laura Jane, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Two things. One thing I'm proud of is our long history. And one thing I'm ashamed of is how this generation thinks it's all irrelevant. And courtesy of the time when I was in school, I'm now 5 years older than you. My birthday was last weekend.
Are you 65?
Yes.
You don't sound it. I thought you were about 35.
Compliments will get you everywhere.
Good.
But I do want to give you a history lesson because I think that's what's lacking is people weren't quite sure who was in the lineup, as it were, on the older generation. If I go back to George V, he had 4 sons, the Prince of Wales, who then abdicated, the Duke of York, who then became George VI.
Yep.
Then the Duke of Kent and the Duke of Gloucester, who were both killed in air accidents during the war.
Yep.
So their sons, the present Duke of Kent, who must be 90 and was looking very doddery, and the Duke of Gloucester, who are all royal dukes, they are first cousins of our late Queen. That's how... And I mean, I'm just giving you a boring history lesson, but those sorts of things are... the younger generation haven't a clue of. And
do you agree with something we said earlier? I mean, I believe one of the things that's perfectly justifiable in criticism is that a lot of education, to me nowadays, has leaned in a certain way to the left. I would very much love to see, be it our heritage, be it our history, be it, you know, I would love VE Day to not just be once a year or once every 5 years or whatever it is. I think our younger generation should be taught about the things of the past and how we are at where we are at. But the problem is the apologists will say, the flag signs up colonialism, you created slavery, which is so wrong. Actually, as Tim Montgomery put so brilliantly, our Navy went around the world and destroyed slavery. We made problems, we made mistakes, and we rectified it, but we don't get any credit.
Reason why history should be taught is because history teaches us what we did wrong.
Yeah,
we look in the past, we know what we're proud of, and we know what we're not proud of. If you don't teach that, How can children learn, simple, right from wrong? I mean, if you stand at a bus stop and you start discussing these kind of things, people think you're a weirdo or you're 65. But it's extraordinary that people don't see that the basic lessons of history are important. And yes, it might be boring to have to recite the kings and queens of England, but, some of the stuff the Normans did, the Tudors did, it's fascinating. And, it leads into history of art. None of that is taught in schools anymore. It doesn't spark any political interest. So now you get politicians who are just rubbish.
Well, I think again, I'm not embarrassed to say that I think we've got a Prime Minister and a government that is not very keen. It was anti the UK, but there we go. Laura Jane, what a fantastic call. We love to have you on. I really appreciate you ringing. Have a good remainder of the bank holiday Monday, almost 20 to 7. If you want to get your call on, got Tobias Elwood on the way, former chair of the Defence Select Committee. His thoughts on VE Day. What are yours? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The legend that is Mike Graham, the man who had chicken Milanese made by his own fair hand for his tea this evening. We'll be back at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Can I just say, we've just found out something shocking in the studio. So I keep talking about it. My 60th birthday is Monday the 7th of July. Turns out Mozzie pushed all the button rather brilliantly, better than anybody else-ish. Anyway, she's here. She's 28 on the same day. So Ryan says, are we going to go out and have a drink? I said, I can't. I don't drink it. Alcohol. I'm not going to do that joke on air. Anyway, because I get sued. But anyway, so Mozzie's 28 and I'm 60, so I could be her dad. Brilliant. There we go. It's great, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. Mosaique's dad's 46. I could be her granddad. Let me tell you, do you know what? I'm going to cast caution to the wind. Once on the Jeremy Kyle show, we had a woman on who was 23 and she was the youngest grandmother in the United Kingdom. There you go. 0344 499 1000. Thank you so much indeed for all your messages about VE Day. What makes you proud to be British? What makes you embarrassed to be British? Jeremy, if you read up on the war and period, there was a lot of poor government and mistakes. The same civil service and MOD, but it was Churchill who mobilised the people against them. Remember, the government, Tories and Labour, handed Poland over and we were going to surrender before the Battle of Britain. It's always been a struggle and it's always been the same. People will hold the country back, but in the end, it will work out. Stephen from Lincolnshire. I plan to lay flowers at the statue of Margaret Thatcher on the occasion of her 100th birthday in October this year. I expected to be the only one to mark the occasion, but now that Lincolnshire is reform, I hope it will be a major event. And Ryan wants me to do this joke. It is a joke. Have a sense of humour on a day like this, ladies and gentlemen. This is from Simon, who says, my granddad brought down 12 German fighter planes. Just as I read that and thought, that's impressive, he put, he was the worst mechanic the Luftwaffe ever had. 6:45, we're live across the UK. Delighted to be joined by my next guest, a man who knows all about the importance of serving the military in this country, Tobias Ellwood. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Good to see you again.
Oh, look at you in the garden. Have you been involved today with some of the festivities? Were you in London for it?
No, I'm actually in Washington, D.C. I'm over here for a few days, and very interesting to understand the feeling, the mood in this country after 100 days of Donald Trump. But absolutely watching events, and indeed I'll be in Bournemouth, where there is a lighting of the beacon to commemorate the Veterans Day, the victory over Europe. And I'm proud to say that I'm now the colonel of the Dorset Regiment. So very proud to have that accolade, and look forward to joining veterans to say thank you for what they did, for what they continue to do in representing our country. And it was very interesting listening to that last discussion, how generationally there's perhaps a different perspective as to what our armed forces do and what they've done in the past. And I can't reiterate further just how important that sacrifice was, that we should say thank you. When that phrase comes out, they gave their today for our tomorrow. It is the freedoms that we enjoy today because of the sacrifices that they made. And when we have our world ever more turbulent, becoming more unstable, with threats coming over the hill, it's an ever more pertinent time to reflect on what we need to do to stay strong, and what British leadership is, particularly in Europe.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that's come out of today, Tobias, apart from it's that day, it's that moment where you see the importance and the just you look at values and you look at history. And I wish that there was more said to the younger generation. I wish that there was a more balanced view. We seem to have a government and a class of apologists in my mind who aren't proud of Britain. Yes, mistakes were made. We're told that we caused all slavery. Actually, our Navy went and sorted out a lot of that problem, having been part of it. In terms of education, I'd love your take on this. A couple of people saying today, wouldn't it be great if in our education, in our schools, that kids were taught about today and the things that matter, the sacrifices that were made, instead of it being labelled, you know, something that we shouldn't even be discussing for fear of being accused. It's like the flag, and I'm really strong on this. I think it is something that children should learn about, don't you, my friend?
I do, and it has changed. Societally, it was already embedded in there. I remember sitting on the knee of my grandfather and him explaining the medals that he won during the First World War, and he was old enough to actually fight in the Boer War as well. But I'm sure, I was only the age of 4 or something like that, I'm sure that had some form of effect on me in being so proud of my father serving Britain, standing up when it was required with others to defend our values. And this connectivity that we have in today's generation has withered a little bit. It's not the same because our armed forces are not the same. And it's worth stressing that after the Cold War ended, we've had it relatively easy. The generations that are coming through have no record of us being under threat, such as in the Cold War, such as having to do national service, such as that Second World War. And what we need to stress is that that was a very strange time. It's unusual not to have those threats, not to be at war. You go back through Britain's history, and we're more at war than we are at peace. Yeah. And we have to say today, it's ever more unstable. We're in a grey zone warfare with Russia right now. Can anybody say that the world is going to be more safe in 5 years' time or more dangerous? We've spoken about introducing national service, of preparing our nation for what's actually coming over the hill. All the more important to reflect what we did in the past in actually standing up, and not least just to look after Britain, but the fact that Britain actually helps look after Europe, because we step forward so often when other nations hesitate.
And it's interesting. I want to take that point into something else that I wanted to talk to you about. We've had, you've been away, but there was quite a seismic election last week, and everybody's talked about it. But I wanted to take it from the point of the VE Day celebrations, because I believe last week the British people, and I don't aim this at Labour or the Tories or I'm talking about a general feeling. I think there is a building frustration, Tobias, in this country. We can look at days like today and people come together. There will be people who will poo-poo it, but the majority of people will feel pride. I think the British people are reaching a point, certainly today would probably focus their minds, and they would be thinking, I've tried to live my life correctly. I've respected the past. I haven't broken the law. I've paid my taxes. My kids aren't scoundrels. I try and do everything. What's happening to my country is I'm sort of eighth in the queue. I believe that this is why Reform achieved what it achieved last week. And all the Tories have said, yeah, but it's a protest vote. I think it's more than that. I think British Tories need to believe that their politicians understand that when they're pontificating about everything they are pontificating about, your average man and woman, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, partner, whatever, right? They want their government and their politicians to be concerned about what's happening to them in their country right now. Do you get that?
Yes, I do. I mean, you cover so many issues there, and even the results of the local elections and that by-election came across the Atlantic here, people scratching their heads saying, what's going on? And I've had to explain, and I don't think the Conservatives and Labour have got their heads around this, is that the two-party construct that's existed from the year dot, ever since we've had democracy, is now all over. It's now multi-party, and we need to get our heads around. So it's not just a protest vote, it's a revamp as to how we do politics. But it's also anger, I think general anger that you imply, that we're not getting the political leadership that we respect, that we require in Parliament. And it's from the gene pool of parliamentarians, of course, that we get our cabinet members, and of course we choose a prime minister. How many good MPs do we need just to get one Churchill? I'm afraid too many people are put off. The great and the good, the leaders that could come forward and help provide some of the solutions to the challenges that we face today, are actually deterred by British politics. But we need to fix that. In addition to those challenges that you mentioned, the policy itself, we need good people to lead. And I stress that evermore is that important as the threats build up, and Britain will be expected by other nations to step up as we've done in the past.
Completely brilliant. Listen, enjoy DC. We'll speak when you're back. We won't go into Trump tonight, but great words about VE Day and an understanding. Thank you so much indeed. Tobias Ellwood, former chair of the Defence Select Committee, live and exclusive for Talk there in Washington, DC. Goodness me, we better go to an ad break. Just, in a minute, he's going to walk in, isn't he, O'Sullivan? Just going to walk in and go, are we on air? Back in a minute.
was that, Mike? What was that?
Oh, my God. Well,
does this man have anyone protecting him in the media space? I mean, where's your publicist that steps in and says, we promised you 10 minutes, it's been 30?
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on when it comes to the contradictions, when it came to the oversharing.
Yeah.
This is the third time the man has told us that his father doesn't take his calls anymore, by the way. Don't forget, in the Netflix series, Meghan actually says Harry lost his dad.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 5 minutes to 7 o'clock. 5 minutes away from Kev O'Sullivan, it says here, one of the world's best broadcasters. We'll take you through the evening. Can I just pay tribute? Now, listen, well done the team today. Jodie, amazing. Ryan, predictably brilliant. Muzzy, whatever. But there's and Amy, but there's a girl outside the studio who has just literally got here from Australia. She's only here for 10 days. Can't even spend any time with her. The amazing Holly Jones, who, in more ways than one, was an amazing mate and has been brilliant and is making a life for herself on the other side of the sea, and I'm very upset about it. But anyway, she's here. She's getting drunk. I don't drink, obviously. 0344 419 1000. Holly Jones, the last 5 minutes is dedicated to you, so if it's crap, it's your fault. Let's go to the phone lines. We've got to London. Georgina is for once naked. No, she's not naked. Are you naked?
No, I'm totally not naked. Are you naked?
This is very worrying because you texted me the other day at the show to say that you were cooking naked. I do. I will.
My God!
I will tell you What?
I did not say I was cooking naked.
Somebody told me. Was this a different Georgina? Did a Georgina the other?
No. I spoke to your beautiful girl who takes the phone calls, and I said, tell Jeremy that I am cooking naked because you said that I did my cooking naked.
I am going to tell you what happened to me once. I don't know why I'm saying this because this will be somewhere. I did once burn my thingy because I was ironing naked.
Oh my God! I don't believe you said that.
I was ironing naked and the doorbell went and I flipped round and I caught on the iron.
Oh my God! Well, keep your underpants on.
Branded like a sheep, I was. Anyway, I don't know where that's all come from. What would you like to say? What would you like to say, Madonna?
Right, I want to say the most proud I have felt was today when I saw all the Union Jacks. I saw everyone coming together to watch the celebration for our veterans who fought for our country and to give us all of the freedoms that we have the luxury, Jez,
to
enjoy.
Yep.
Freedom of speech, movement, choice, thought. What's really given me the raving hump is watching that hypocritical, pathetic excuse of a Prime Minister who is taking away every freedom that our veterans died to give us, shaking the hands of our elderly after taking away their winter fuel allowance, and our veterans who have died on the streets in the winter of the cold. It's absolutely disgraceful. This man has no conscience, this man has no shame, and he has definitely got no love for our elderly or our veterans.
Could not.
He shouldn't have even been there, Jez.
Couldn't agree more, and literally got to move, but I absolutely 1,000,000% agree with everything. Georgina, fully clothed for today. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely. Final call of the day. Go to Bournemouth. It's nice there. Kaz, you got 1 minute. What you got?
Well, I think the great thing we've got is the great British sense of humour.
Oh, hold on a second. This is because earlier I said what's great about the United Kingdom, what is crap about the United Kingdom. Our sense of humour. I have a friend called Dave Levine. Every time he wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror, he's got a sense of humour. What's the worst thing about being British?
Well, unfortunately, our Prime Minister at the moment,
It's not doing
I mean,
very well.
I'm not sure if he's transitioning or he's just getting flat off the back of us lot.
I must say the overriding image of a man shaking the hands of veterans today, when he's taken away their winter fuel allowance, when he's is extraordinary in itself. Is Bournemouth cold tonight?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Not right.
I'll have to have my coat on. Kaz, thank you so much indeed. Very nice to have you on. And thank you all very much indeed for listening, all 11 of you, because when you do listen, it gives me so much more time to work out what's coming next. This has been another high-quality performance. Not. Ryan, thank you. Ryan's looking drained today, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you remember how we started the show. Ryan got new shoes today because he's got size 14 feet. Extraordinary feet, massive feet, and there is an adage that if you've got Sullivan, get in here for goodness sake. Apparently, if you've got big feet, shout it out, Kev. If you've got big feet, what does that mean?
It means you've got a big personality.
Right, okay. Kev O'Sullivan.